And another TROM-Cast. You see, we do it every week, but I'm lying to you because we don't do it every week. The only thing that's consistent about TROM-Cast is my shirt. I wear this every time, almost. I'm trying to, keep it minimal. Okay, advertise, trade free and stuff. On this TROM-Cast, we are going to discuss something interesting. We'll discuss about collaboration with other projects, but it's mainly around Alex's maybe idea of how we could do that. Maybe projects like TROM and TVP and Zygas and so forth may collaborate with each other. We will see what Alex has to say about that. I will ask Alex to talk a bit about himself or his involvement with TVP. But before we get into the meat of the problem, whatever you call it, the meat of the meat, the carrots of the vegan meat of the pie.
Yes.
We have this thing with TROM-Cast. We tell you a bit of the latest news from TROM Created News to make people aware of that we have these created tools. Like if you go on tromsite.com/tools, we curate many things there. So news, videos, illustrations, and so forth. So we select some news of the week or the weeks since we did last TROM-Cast, and we can just a few minutes discuss about them, put them into highlight here. Okay, so let's just go quickly through them so we have more time afterwards to talk about the main subject. What are you going to hit us with, Cody? Is something positive or negative? Huh?
It depends on how you want to look at it. It's perspective. The entire world's carbon emissions will finally be trackable in real time.
You know about this app? Have you heard about this? Do you want to make an app? Yeah, that will track the emissions in real time, basically taken from satellite data, ground data, like in real time to see exactly who is emitting and where. This non-profit basic organization who wants to do this. So we should be available. I haven't tested it because I think it's available now, but it's interesting. They think that maybe if they do that, we can see the blame bleeding from some places, But
isn't that extremely complicated to track every bit of emissions?
Apparently, you can do it with AI.
We have the technology now.
Probably because you see, every kind of industry has to somehow probably measure all of these inputs and outputs, of their emissions. So maybe plus they use satellite data. I think, as far as I've read, they rely on that a lot. So even you cannot really lie because, we can see it with satellite data. How much CO2 you are emitting and so forth. So it's interesting. Let's see.
A lot of data.
So that could be a positive news for a negative news, for positive, for a negative.
Right.
I've shared an app that I know of that's supposed to do real-time tracking of emissions. So you have a map and you can see what are the emissions in your area and where they're coming from. Yeah, so that might be
maybe
helpful.
this one is more complex or something. As far as I've read, probably they want to involve a lot more data or something. But it'll be interesting to see if it also has an impact. Because if you just track the CO2 and be like, okay, we are kind of fucked, we emit more and more. I'm not sure it's that helpful, but
right.
Yes.
Got
anything?
Who's behind Wednesday's epic Twitter hack?
That was from last week, but we didn't mention this. It's interesting to see that the Twitter accounts from Barack Obama to Elon Musk to Bezos or Apple were hacked. And I think that tells us two things. One is that everything is hackable, really. If laws and rules, if people really want to do it, they'll do it. And I think now they kind of went for the employees of Twitter, basically, they went through them in a way to access some parts of the servers, and then they hacked those. They could hack probably any kind of account in that regards. And that's one, everything is hackable, basically, or rules and laws. Second, of course, what they did, like last time I said, they put something with Bitcoin. Hey, scams revolving Bitcoin to get more Bitcoin in return. So what's the motivation behind the hacks? To make some more in this world, to gain more. If you didn't have this drive, probably wouldn't see these fucking hacks, but if it's an incentive in today's world, you will see them. So it was a big hack. Yeah, it's
Adam.
Yes. Yes, sir. And Cody, can I ask you something? Like, where is your food coming from, my friend?
I think the grocery store, which is hopefully from a farmer's field, which is hopefully not genetically engineered. Some lab. Oh my god.
Are you scared of genetically
I don't know,
engineered
man. Those
stuff?
GMOs are gonna get me.
But do you think it's made by humans? Probably, yeah. Or
But
by robots.
for now. Oh man.
It's this idea of making chefs automated. And when I was a TVP and I was making TV magazine, I was writing this book, AA World, Automated Autonomous World. And I was trying to look at how that is. And can you automate really a chef, someone who makes food, all kinds of recipes? It's interesting because today there are many who brag about that, the many companies, but if you look deeply into that, is more like an advertisement gig. You don't probably need a chef with human hands. You already have all kinds of factories that can produce automated, like all kinds of repeating the same action or multiple actions, thousands, and producing all kinds of dishes. Everything you see in a supermarket is produced in an automated fashion. Actually, it comes from these factories. It was this show called How It's Made. I don't know if you guys have watched this show.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big show, yeah, on Discovery. It was quite interesting to see how everything is automated, basically, from food production to clothes to whatever. So they say that demand for robot cooks rises as kitchens combat COVID. This is fine, but if you look at it, it's more like a PR stunt, like, oh, look at this fucking, I don't know, food over knives over forks, whatever the fuck company is there. It's like, oh, we made this robot that just makes like some rice, whatever, and they use it as a promotional thing. So be aware of such things. Maybe you don't need robots, chefs with hands. Like we don't need a robot in a car keeping the wheel straight, left, right, paying attention, talking to you. Hey, how was your day today?
Pretty good.
Yeah, robot cooks. And we have two, three more news.
I have 5.
Okay. Let's go quickly through them.
Probiotics revisited.
Do you think they worked, Cody?
I thought I was on the probiotics bandwagon, and then I was no, and then I don't know anymore.
Yeah, new studies showcase that basically they works in one way or another for specific diseases. That's how science is never like, oh, they work or they don't. For specific diseases. For most diseases that people who use them, no, they don't seem to. So yeah, Cody, it's more like a business.
The business of probiotics.
Yeah, they got you.
Newly discovered bipedal crocodile ancestor terrorized pre-dinosaur world. That's kind of a jump.
Yeah, but I think this is an error. I think it's an error in whatever, because this is from 2015. I don't know. Maybe it redirected you from another.
Maybe I mean I'll try.
Yeah,
I got.
It was, I think, an error. Repeat the PBS website or something. So
bastards.
Yeah.
Fun then.
Yeah, it's not newly anymore. It's oldly discovered.
Old bipedal crocodile man in the dinosaur era, of course. Yeah, old news.
So leave him there.
Leave him in the past. One day of COVID-19. Drug and vaccine news provides cautious reminders.
Yeah, is he still a problem there in Canada?
I don't
COVID
think so.
people are.
We're stage 3, brother. We don't look anymore.
But what about in Florida, where Alex is? Because I think there is like there are new cases more and more every day.
The new epicenter, isn't it, of US?
Yeah, a lot of people get infected much more than the first wave, but less people are dying. So, it's unclear for the reasons for that. Yeah, but
maybe because
enough
they
people
proceed
die in the United States to make it a real concern, but it doesn't look like anyone is really doing anything with it. They're like, okay, let's create some financial stimulus to people. Like that would solve anything. And it's all about testing. Well, let's test more people. So we do like 1 million or 10 million, I think, tests per month. That was like the goal. I don't think it was reached. But even if you think of it, like you need many years to test everyone in the country. So like, what does it do even if you do like 10 million tests a month?
And multiple times, because it's not like if you test negative in 2 months.
In most cases, most tests come negative, so then you need to test those people again because they can get infected every day. So so they talk about, oh, we're doing 10 million tests whatever a month or something, but like that's nothing. Like it doesn't, well, it doesn't solve people being sick and die, just testing. And B, it's at a rate that's funny. That's absolutely wouldn't do anything. You won't be able to get full picture of who's sick and who's not. So yeah, so that's bullshit.
I think the approach is more like to test to see if there are more infections in one area, so they can maybe say, okay, now we force you to wear a mask or just don't go out, or that's what I've heard. Maybe they use it like that.
Yeah, and hope that people.
But eventually, like Florida and Texas have tons and tons of people infected, but business as usual. Like I can go out freely without a mask. Some places ask you very nicely to put on a mask, and that's it. Like sort of Walmart were at first they had a mandate, like you cannot go in without a mask. But since there were too many confrontations between people and employees, so they decided to make it only a recommendation. So so you're doing tests, but there's nothing done with the data, and even if you do, the data is not enough. So yeah, it's like it's absurd. So
you can hurt the people, but don't hurt the businesses. That's not allowed.
Yeah, well, both being hurt eventually. Like businesses are really struggling. Yeah, because there's no certainty. So people, it's very difficult to have a business when you don't know what's going to happen next month. Yeah, so.
Is everything open? Like restaurants and bars and everything is open?
Well, a lot of them are not open, but not because they're not allowed to, but mostly because, it's very difficult to do business now. People are not coming out that much. So, and it's changed every week. There was like, for example, during the 4th of July, like the Independence Day here, they decided to close the beaches. So so in that case, all the businesses there were forced to do nothing because the beaches are closed. But then they opened it all again after 4th of July. So yeah, there's no policy. Yeah. It's all like a lot of different states, each doing what they think is right, and no one knows what's really right. Yeah, so it's looks like a big mess.
Yeah, and it's not like they don't know how really to take decisions if you ask the experts. But that the experts are they don't take the decisions here. Politicians will take the decisions here, or even there might be some experts that are influenced by the politicians, and then they lean towards that bias. So that's how decisions are made in today's world. Well, what is good for the economy? Some ask. That's a bit fucked up. What's good for the people? You should ask. Oh well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of that, we have another last one is about the COVID-19 and the excess deaths. Because that's another thing. You hear that there are this many deaths. Very likely there are a lot more deaths. But they could be counted now. There are deaths that like if someone dies, you have to do a test to see if they had COVID. Else you don't know if it was COVID or not. How many are doing that? Another thing is that there are, if you look at deaths, for example, for last year in the US, and then for this year in the US, and subtract the ones who have had COVID and died from this year, you'll still see a spike in deaths this year. So it means that something happened. There are more deaths, even if you push aside the COVID deaths, there are more deaths. So probably they are related to COVID. So that's another thing that they will look in the future.
Yeah, also because when hospitals get overwhelmed, it's not just the people that have COVID that might die, but people with other diseases that didn't get treated because the hospital was overwhelmed. So, makes sense.
Where do you find the data about deaths, like recent data about deaths, and that it increased? Because I couldn't find any data related to that.
Yeah, it's in this science.
Yeah, but
it's in this article in science-based medicine.org that we have all of these links that we talk about. They are in the show notes there on YouTube or Facebook's description. I can send it to you in the chat now. And they link to the deaths. For example, in Spain, they say that there is a 60% increase in deaths compared to previous years, which is huge. Even when you push aside the COVID deaths, you still see a huge increase in deaths. So, yeah. And I think that's it with the news. So we brought you the bad news.
Well, yeah.
Of the week. Well, let me just end up with this good news, actually, because we had another one that is just the last one. This is presenting results from the Galaxy Builder project. Just this citizen scientist project where people look at images of galaxies and they identify what kind of galaxies there are. Where is the center? Where are the arms of the galaxy? Computers cannot do that properly today. So they help build for thousands of galaxies, to organize them, put them in properly organize them. So it's a great example of how you can harness the power of volunteers, the power of people to do some science. So that's a good news for you there. Okay.
Yes. Very nice.
Collaboration.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of collaboration. See? That was the perfect segue there. Speaking of collaboration, okay. I was thinking these days, and interestingly, the reason that I wrote this book, The Origin of Most Problems, is because someone from the Venus Project, Guillerme, I think is his name, maybe
Guil.
still Guil, yeah. He contacted me 2 years or so ago, along with other people, saying we should collaborate with each other. And I had a discussion with him, and I was like, I have to really think about this. Give me like a few weeks, because I want to just write something to like show you what I have in mind. And it ended up in 1 year work and over 1,000 pages book. And that's how I wrote The Origin of Most Problems. Sometimes I forget that that's how I started it. So to put it in like 1 minute, briefly, like a nugget of information there, what my idea was. You see, many contacted me about, let's collaborate with each other. We have all kinds of so-called RB groups or self-sustainable groups or this and that. And I was like, okay, it's I don't know exactly what you want from me, but I looked more into it. And my core idea was in presenting this book that collaboration, you don't start to collaborate. Collaboration happens, and collaboration happens if, from what I've realized, you have a core enemy, like I said in multiple TROM-Casts. And that's what I imagine. Like, okay, if we focus on one core enemy and I define it as trade, and whoever else works to tackle it in whatever ways, they're our friends, and we can share their materials. We can then talk to them about specific projects and so forth. So that was my entire idea. One enemy, multiple organizations tackling that enemy will eventually collaborate. So now let's see, because Alex, before we start, I want to tell us a bit about you and because you are at the research center in Venus, Florida. So tell us a bit about what's your involvement with TVP and a bit about, for how long are you involved with TVP, what are you doing there and so forth, because it's interesting to hear that before we start to discuss.
Cool. So like about 4 years ago, I started to get to be exposed to the Venus project, and then other projects like TZM and TROM and so on. And I was back then I was in Israel, so I started to help with the Israeli I started to help the Israeli team, the Israeli local group that works on TVP. And then 3 years ago I moved to the United States, so it was difficult for me to help that team, so I looked for other projects to help with. I was helping one community a little bit. I try to assist with TROM whenever I can. Now there's more things that I can help with, so I would hopefully be able to do more. I went through, there's like a course that TVP does for point of contacts. So I did that to get familiarized more with the core ideas of TVP, and through that maybe help more. So I went through that course, so I'm sort of officially a point of contact in Israel, but I'm not in Israel, so I don't really do that much. And I also help TVP with the Center for Resource Management project. So I sort of lead the R&D team there. So that's a project to eventually to build sort of a campus where all of the volunteers, or many of them, would be able to collaborate physically in the same place, and will they be able to do more than they are able to do now when they're online, each with their own life and stuff like that. And that's also a place where there'll be like a museum of the future, which sort of what here in Venus, Florida, I know there are these buildings that sort of demonstrate a certain idea of how architecture should blend with nature and stuff like that, but on a much larger scale, okay, where you can demonstrate future technologies, so people won't be afraid of future technologies, and would also see the potential of future technologies more than they see now. Yeah. So I try to help all these organizations because I think that their core goal, or where they're aiming at, is very similar. And this is a place that I personally want to go, as with humanity. And wherever I sit, I can contribute more. That's where I go. That's what I do. So now I just had the opportunity that I was in the United States because my work is here, and I had the opportunity to come to Venus, Florida, and actually physically be here and help with stuff that require physical attention. So I've been building here like a lot of automation in this place. So when visitors come, they would be able to see how technology can be used to automate stuff. Yeah. So there are a few projects that I'm working on here. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that let's start it in a maybe different way. That I had my experience with TVP for around 4 years or so. Sasha also had her experience with TVP. She was also a point of contact, right, for the Russian-speaking team for 2 years or so. We had our experience with TVP, but I would say let's start by our experiences were not, I would say, that great in terms of collaboration with TVP, at least from my perspective, of course. But I would say for now, let's put that aside and start to think like if we were like all of us very friendly and very like whatever, nice to each other and want to collaborate. We would like to hear, what do you have in mind? How do you see these organizations really collaborate? Because I've never heard something specific, in that regards. Every time I'm asking others, so maybe you have something more in mind about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I made sort of a list for myself of things that can be beneficial in a collaboration, or how multiple organizations can complement each other into creating something that's as a whole is more than each organization on their own. So we can start with that. So like I think that every decision or extra thing that anyone might want to do, you need to first realize that it's beneficial, or it can be beneficial a lot, and then you have the motivation to do that. Okay, so any type of collaboration would require some resources or some attention once in a while or whatever. So in order for that to survive, you need to understand the benefits and how it can benefit the organization you're working on, and how it can benefit you personally of eventually getting to that brighter future faster. So one of the things that I think would be very much beneficial is that people like me that see these organizations as going in sort of the same direction or similar direction would support and contribute to these projects if those projects collaborate. Okay. So, for example, if I contribute to TVP today, I can contribute to TROM tomorrow and TZM the next day. Okay, if I feel that these things that I'm doing align and do not contradict each other. Currently, I think there's a lot of sort of contradiction or artificial or perceived contradiction between all of those, because each mentions how the others are not heading the right direction. So it's very difficult psychologically for anyone to help multiple organizations, and they're forced sort of to choose which direction they're supporting. So I think if there will be more like official alignment between organizations, at least they're stating that they're going in a similar direction and they support each other, then each of the people that support each organization would be shared between organizations. So and people would be less confused. So I think they would contribute more eventually in total. Okay, me as an individual, I would contribute more if I see that all of these organizations are practically heading in the right direction. So I think each organization would benefit from more audience and more engaged audience, and that's a huge benefit because all of the organizations dependent on the community, whether that's spreading ideas on social media or contributing financially or contributing using volunteer hours and work. So I think no organization can say that it's not something that's important for them.
How can you see that happening? Like, how would that look in this kind of unifying of these organizations?
Yeah.
I understand.
So yeah. So maybe since there are multiple benefits beside this one, maybe we can briefly go over them, and then when we discuss about the solution, that solution would address a lot of those benefits and not only one. If you don't mind that we come back to this question a bit later, because this is a core question of how to do that. Yeah. So okay, so the next thing is focus. Okay, so on our previous meeting, we all talked about focus. How we should focus on if you're talking about the source of most problems, you're saying, okay, we need to focus on that. Otherwise, it's too vague, it's too broad, and people don't understand stuff like that. So each of the organizations focuses on something. Okay, I sort of in the chat, I sort of briefly try to explain the focus or how I perceive the focus of each project, but it's only my point of view. Okay, but if I have to put it briefly, like TROM sort of focuses on the core problem in our society today, and TVP sort of covers the problems, but it's not the focus. The focus is, okay, this is what we should do in order to solve our problems on the long term. Okay, TVP doesn't provide very in-depth description like TROM does on current day problems, and TVP doesn't provide short-term solutions. Okay, that's definitely not, these things are not the focus of TVP. And while it is, it's a disadvantage for TVP, I don't think there's a lot of options because, as you said, you need to focus on something to do it really well. And so each organization has their own focus. TZM sort of focuses on cinematography and conveying the ideas, and maybe sort of a transition. If like the latest film that they're working on sort of supposed to talk about the transition between today's society, and the future society. So yeah, and one community offers, for example, some solutions for also like very, very practical solutions of living, sustainable living solutions, stuff like that. So but each of these organizations has the disadvantage that there are things they don't covering, okay, or not focusing on. And if there's one umbrella under which you say, okay, there are multiple organizations, but if we add up their solutions, we come up with an ultimate or best or optimal solution, then that's a bonus. Yeah. So.
Yeah, if you want to continue, if not, I can add some stuff.
Yeah, I have a few more things, and then we can move on to the house. Yeah, so I think specifically for like beside what TROM said, it's focusing on the source of most problem, but it's sort of not true because TROM also focuses on some solution, which is a trade-free society, right? And this also covers some spectrum of solutions. Obviously, right? You're saying, okay, should start being as trade-free as possible as soon as possible. So that's a sort of short, medium-term solutions, and the long-term solutions would come about once we get rid of a lot of trade that exists in our society, right? Sort of, so in that sense, the long-term solutions are not very concrete with TROM, right? Okay, I read through the books, and I realized there were some changes, so I briefly went over them, and there are conversation of very up-to-date technologies, like a little bit of blockchain or longevity and a lot of stuff like that. But there's no very concrete solution like TVP. And that's good, because I think that TROM is covering very well the spectrum and the array of solutions, but that also what prevents from TROM from being very specific, in the future in any of these solutions, because of the focus and limited resources. And TVP takes one of these solutions, which may be others or variations of that and stuff like that, and really drills down into that. So that is sort of research and development work that can only be done if you focus on something. Okay, like you cannot do research and development broadly on anything that's related to today's society. And TVP sort of takes one area and develops it in depth, which includes also behavioral and behaviorism, behavioral sciences, system theory, architectural and environment design and stuff like that, which is sort of a niche if you think about the entire spectrum of solutions. But it sounds promising because it takes scientific method and try to implement it using today's science like behaviorism, system design, physics, chemistry, biology, and stuff like that, and try to fuse it into a solution. Sounds promising, but maybe in the future the solution would be a variation on that, or somewhat different, or very much different. I don't know. Okay, beside all of those things, you have also the benefit of legal entity separation and risk mitigation. And what I mean by that if some organization is doing something that is risky, for example, let's assume there's going to be a new organization that's called the Dolphin Movement, okay? Whatever, I made up on the spot. So that organization would do protests, okay? In order to raise awareness, in order to show people that a lot of big part of the society supports this kind of innovative ideas, stuff like that. And this organization might be, closed down, forced to be closed down by some government, and that was risk to that organization, but it wouldn't pose a real risk to the entire ecosystem of these organizations that collaborate together. So, for example, TVP and TZ would benefit from someone that more active way, but they're not exposed to the risks in that activity. So that's also some things that you can do with multiple organizations, but you cannot do with one organization because it's one legal entity usually and stuff like that. Yeah. So these are the main things. There's also like political movements. Maybe in some countries it can be relevant and can push stuff and get resources to projects and stuff like that. And I think this can be only accomplished when you have collaboration between organizations rather than just one organization in one country and stuff like that. So okay. I said a lot of things. Thank you for your patience.
No problem. I took some notes here. What I will say first is that maybe it's a bit misunderstood what TROM tries to do, because, for example, what I try to explain very well in at least the last book, and you'll see the next documentary, is that our focus on the problem, it comes especially from this cluster of ideas like TVP or Buckminster Fuller or technocracy and so forth. So let me just, in just 5 minutes or so, let me explain all of this in a condensed way. So I was at TVP. I've read everything that I was out there about TVP. So Jack's lectures so many times. Roxanne sent me all of the lectures, the CDs, and so forth. Actually, I have it here. Like, this is the Venus Project collection. I have all of the DVDs and CDs with Venus Project. I have the book. I have everything. So yeah, I was helping.
There's 800 more hours of lectures coming out soon. So be ready.
I understand, but out of all of that, I tried to build this book, The Money Game, trying to understand this monetary system. I went through others because I realized TVP might not be as maybe unique in some regards, and I've been looking into the technocracy movement. I contacted the people from technocracy. I was talking to them. others from metabolism in Japan and others and so forth. I've realized that there are many clusters of solutions for our today's society, and what I realized is that maybe focusing on just one of them, doesn't matter how holistic they say it is, it's always insufficient. I'm sure technocracy thought that they are very all-encompassing back then, especially for US. They have all kinds of plans. They have some blueprints. They had their technicians. They had quite a big following, a few million people, I think. They even had a magazine that was like, it was a bit creepy because I was reading this magazine from 1930s. And it looked like TV magazine. I was like, what the fuck? We are doing the same shit. It's like we are trying to look at present day technology and explain how we can apply it to change this world in one that goes beyond the monetary system. It offers to people an abundance of goods and services and so forth. Well, anyways, put that aside. So I was a TVP, and I started to have questions, more and more questions, learning about the world, and then I convinced myself that, focusing on a solution and trying to make it as holistic as possible, as encompassing, it's extremely difficult. It's like the society is such a complex monster. You can never know. You cannot kind of predict much about the world at all. And if you try to prove to the world how a mini version of your community or of your society will work, then I haven't seen any examples of that being useful. One example like I gave in the book was, say, solar panels. Is a perfect example. Like, look, we have solar panels, we can get rid of climate change. It's not as easy as that. It's not like people will move towards that. Yes, it will add up to our move towards renewable energy future. But anyways, so with my struggle in my head, I try to make this original Most Problem book to explain even more in detail why focusing on a problem is better than just coming up with solutions and staying with one organization or another organization. And like you said there, you said something like TROM may give solutions like trade-free this, trade-free that, or technologies and so forth. Actually, the entire book is makes it so obvious for people that no, we don't provide any kind of solutions. We just showcase what it could be in terms of where trade, you take the trade away, what better outcomes can be. Like blockchain is not a good solution for anything. That was the example. When it comes to aging, actually, that was the example of showcasing how, look, people focus on solving aging. I think this is a very important example here, very telling. People try to focus on combating aging, and some will say that's crazy. The same way that say about us, like, it's crazy to want to change the society. Are you crazy? Society is fucking complex. So aging, like I explained a few times before, it's the product of metabolism. If you look at the map of metabolism, it's insane. It's all of those processes are insanely complex. So people focus on aging because they keep that in mind. Look, aging is a problem. They come up with different solutions. Some want to replace some cells, some want to replace damaged DNA, some the telomeres, and so forth. And I realized for the past 10 years, keeping an eye on this aging movement, that the way that they collaborate, and this is the point I want to make in regards to collaboration, the way that they collaborate is not that they come under the umbrella of one organization or another. Is that they do in a separated way research. They do media. They, for example, one of them contacted this Kurzgesagt. It's a YouTube channel. It's very popular. They made a video about them. I don't know how. I think they paid a few $1,000s, as far as I remember back then, to make that video. But the video wasn't about Abu the Grey, who fights against aging, or their organization. It was about aging, showcasing how aging is a bad thing, and why it's a bad thing. That may spark curiosity from others to get involved and tackle aging. So I hope you understand that that's my focus here. I want to showcase to people that look how bad aging is and what it creates. I will also showcase some things that are done in the world to combat aging, but my focus is always on the problem, you see. So I wouldn't say TROM is focused on immediate solutions. I don't want any immediate solutions. I'm just showcasing what examples are out there in terms of trade-free stuff. But trade-free stuff is just one idea. I even mentioned in the book. I stopped the book at one point. I said, you can stop the book here. Don't go to the solution part, because that's not that important. Whoever went past that part, okay, good for them. I'm talking about automation. I'm talking about volunteers. I'm talking about open source and so forth. I give multiple examples. So I hope you understand that I want to really make clear that TROM is not like, oh, let's quickly do something here. Let's quickly feed the poor, or let's quickly. All of these things for me are an example that we can, and I try to do the same with TVP when I was a TVP, showcasing examples that we can do it without this force of trade without us putting our priorities first and caring more about other people, not profiting. So I hope that you understand that Rome is not doesn't want that. Doesn't want let's feed people. Let's all of these examples that we give are just to showcase that it's possible. So I hope you understand that. Now, I want to hear more more concrete ideas about what do you have in mind when it comes to collaboration, because from my perspective, based on all of that I said, that if we fight against something, we promote other people's stuff and so forth. We promote lots of stuff. We even promote Jack, TVP. Even recently, all kinds of videos posted on social networks. We make those videos. We made it in the past. We may make them in the future. TZM stuff, we invite them here, or TROM-Cast. We try to make people aware of them. Probably they are already aware of them. So we do something in that regards. We make this trade-free directory, and we put these solutions that are trade-free. We contact people sometimes that are behind those projects. We will try to invite them more and more on TROM-Cast and so forth. So what can we do is really if I will say, okay, Alex, I agree, we should collaborate, how should that be, since I do not know exactly, what could I do? What could ITO do, or people around Trom do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think there are at least two different levels. You have on the strategic level, how you make multiple organizations communicate with each other and have processes that are inter-organizational, okay, between the organizations. So there's that, and there's a second level of more practical level or tactical level. What you do, do you share posts? Do you do work for other projects? Do other projects do work for you? Do you share your volunteer power? If some projects need help, others. So there are two levels, I think, that the discussion needs to cover at least. So we can start with either of them. For example, on the more strategic level, you can have an organization that is which is what usually done when you have, for example, multiple companies, commercial companies that have a need to collaborate. They form an organization that's a non-profit that this organization has a representative from each of the individual organizations. So for example, it can be one big bright future organization, whatever, right? And on the board of this organization, there will be a representative from TROM, there will be a representative from TZM, from TVP, from whatever. Okay, and then there you can make decisions that would be decided by all of these organizations, and that's how you can make strategic sort of collaboration. So you can decide on making projects that way that would benefit multiple organizations and stuff like that. You can also decide on protocols. For example, you can agree on that if one group releases a major post or social media interaction, stuff like that, then others would also share it in their own circles, stuff like that. So you can reach all kinds of agreements, and then each organization would be enforcing them in their own local environment. So it doesn't have to be official organization, that collaborative organization. It can be just a board of people meeting periodically, once a month or whatever, and then they discuss and bring more ideas of how they can make the collaborations more work better, and how all of these organizations can benefit from future projects and stuff like that. So that's on the strategic level, which is quite common. It's not a new idea in the commercial field and non-profits as well. This is how they collaborate often.
But if I may interrupt you before you go to the next point, because I want to say something about this point. Isn't there a difference between companies who are run as top down and they can tell people what to do and how to do it and when to do it, and the organizations like us that we rely completely on volunteers? Because I don't have any much control over Sasha or Cody or Aaron, or they do whatever they want. They're not like part of TROM. I cannot tell them. I'm not the one to tell them what to do. Actually, interestingly, almost half of the people, or maybe not that, but people who are involved with TROM came from TVP, like a bit wounded warriors. But they came there. It's like I couldn't do much work there. So they came. I didn't say anything. They just came to TROM to get involved. So how can that work when we talk about organizations that they don't have any top-down structure like this? How can that work? Because if I came to this meeting, whatever it is, I can decide in my own way for TROM, but then what happens with the other people who may feel like they kind of work for TROM, that they are just beneath me in a way. They have to do like I tell them, how that can work with such organizations,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be top-down. It can be totally decentralized organizations. Okay. And the same the way that you currently do things, you can continue doing them the same way. Okay. For example, currently, if most of the team or most of the people that work on a project agree on something, okay, this is advancing the project. Whoever doesn't agree with it, they don't have to do it. They can They can do other things, or they can decide not to contribute to that thing. But if most of you agree that something should be done, then you're the guys that are going to be working on it. That's the same thing here. When you go as a representative to this board, okay, that doesn't mean you commend people, okay? You're a representative, okay? So you're, in case that your organization is decentralized, okay, like there's Timo that is, I united TROM and Timo. So there's Theo, which obviously, you have a lot of say in what's going on in the project, right? People listen to what you're saying, but you're not a commander, not an authority that just can command other people to do what they want. So obviously, when you go and represent in some way, okay, it's obvious to everyone that you're just representing, okay, and whatever is decided, it would have to be backed by the rest of the people in the project, or most of them, okay, whatever way you work. So yeah, so if you're doing a good job of representing most people, then it would work. If you not represent other people's opinion and only yourself, then yeah, it would fail. But we count on the people that would come to these discussions, and anyone can attend them. The fact that there is a board, that doesn't mean that there's like managers that make decisions. Anyone can join on these boards and express their opinion and stuff like that. Like here, there are people that attend in video and they make discussion, and there are other people that are commenting because they don't want to express their opinion, but not to the extent that they really would want to talk for tens of minutes in a meeting. So there is a way to do that without being top-down hierarchical. There's nothing that dictates a hierarchical approach in that sense.
In a way, that kind of sounds to me like the monthly TeamSpeak meetings that I assume TVP still holds, where every team, somebody from each team gets together once a month and they share what they're doing and come talk about certain things.
Yeah, well, that's not what I meant, because the purpose of those meetings are just to get updates. Okay. And the purpose of that sort of mutual board or whatever that is, mutual meetings, that is to make decisions. Okay. And to bring up ideas and share ideas between the organizations. So the purpose would be very different. So obviously, the amount of people that are required for this kind of thing is much smaller. So you don't have to have 50 people, each of them speaking for 2 minutes, bringing up updates. So the format would have to be much different in that sense.
Okay.
Let's see. Imagine that I will join this board. What would you say, like one of the examples that we could discuss and I could have an opinion about, or we could see if we agree or not, or do something about? Can you give like a theoretical example? What could that look like? Because that's always, I'm left in the dark always when it comes to such things. And trust me, many people contacting me over the years with all kinds of groups. They made all kinds of websites to unite the organizations, but I never saw like the actual thing. Like, do you have something in mind? How that could look like?
Yeah, of course. So, for example, and obviously the best ideas would come when these organizations talk to each other and bring them up, but I can think of a few that can be very good, or in my opinion. So, for example, when TZM makes a movie, okay, they bring in a lot of ideas, and they're good at making movies. Their movies attracted a lot of attention and stuff like that. So when they work on a new movie, okay, the ideas that are brought in this movie can be collaboratively designed, okay, or planned. So that would eventually create a movie that when you share, okay, it represents a lot of the ideas of TROM. And when TVP shares them, they will present a lot of the TVP. And since those movies would eventually hopefully get millions and millions and millions of views, it could be a really big exposure that would promote all of those projects if the ideas of those projects are reflected in that movie. So that can be one thing where everyone meets and discuss which ideas should be brought up in this movie, so that the entire ecosystem would move forward and not just a narrow spectrum of it.
Do you think that the practice is I feel like the practice is a lot more complicated than this, because I've seen that failing within their own organizations. I can say about I've been part of TVP for 4 years or so, and I've seen many failures there to even put a team for us to do something, work on a website or work on a movie script. Or so if I saw that, maybe I've heard from TZM as well, and people telling me being part of that, they fell inside the group. So for me, making those organizations work with each other, it's another layer added on top of that. And I feel like it's such an impossible task. It's almost like trying to make cats cook a dinner or something. Like, you cannot, it's very difficult. You will just all over the place probably, and there will be a lot of talk, because I have to mention this. I don't want to get too much into my experience with TVP, but from my experience, I don't know, you may not remember, or you haven't been around. At one point around TVP, we implemented, and I was one of the admins there, like a social network for TVP for the volunteers on their websites back in 2012 or so, where everyone could request, I need help with this, I need help with that. You try to organize things much better, and it completely failed. It failed because every time I needed help with something for TV Magazine, even if it was a small little thing, editing of the photo and so forth, in today's world, it's very easy to say, yes, I'm going to help, but then not doing anything. And from my experience with volunteers, my experience of organizing stuff, only a few people do stuff. The rest of the people just sign to lists and are on the list of waiting for changing the world, but they never quite reply. And then it's so impossible almost to organize this group of people who come and go, because you rely on volunteers. You don't pay people, you see. So many people come, many people go. So I've seen that failing so many times. I don't know. The theory sounds good, let's say it sounds good that we could share stuff or we can help each other, but the practice, do you understand that I struggle, I struggle to see that this is realistic, no.
Yeah, well the difference here would be that people that are participating in this collaboration would usually be people that stick in the project, work a lot of hours and stuff like that. So when you talk about the interface points, okay, these should be people that are relatively highly engaged in the projects and are in for the long term. Okay, so that way, if you agree on something or there's understanding, this is something that stays for years and not something that then every month someone changes and then you need to do that all over again and stuff like that. And each organization eventually manages to do some work in some way. Okay, obviously, of the organizations have someone that's really full-time on it, and this is the only thing that they're doing. So, but there are varying degrees of engagement, and each organization found their way of that's how they survive. I'm sure there are dozens of organizations that were in the past that died and didn't survive. But those that are here now, those that survived, found some way, to manage that work internally. Okay, to rely to some extent on people that constantly change, and to rely on to some extent on people that stay for years and years on the project and are highly engaged. So, but as I said, the solution for the collaboration is the people in the interface. We need to be people that, stay on the project and are highly engaged. And I think that's not that's the obvious way to do that. Like if you put someone that's just a liaison, whatever, and someone that just does that work on a temporary basis, then that would be bad.
Wouldn't it be better to make it like in like many open source projects work where they have some piece of software, whatever, and everything is in the open, and if you want to join, you can join to this, or you can join to translate their websites actually, and so forth. Like for example, we have a TROM. You don't have to ask anyone to translate any of our websites. You can start and translate it, or our books, or share them, or if you want to do something else, we have ways for you to get involved. So in that sense, no one is hold at TROM. People can choose to help TROM with translations or to help TVP with translations. So I say the more that you are open, and you offer this easy for people to get engaged with methods, easy ways for you to translate, for example. The more you do that, the more engagement you'll have. You don't wait for top-down decisions like join this team, and after you join this team, go to this process. After going to this process, you may do something. What do you think about? Isn't this kind of maybe a better approach overall?
Yeah, I think in general it's a very good approach to to organizing work of multiple participants that are not highly engaged. Okay, such as volunteers that come and go and stuff like that. So I think that's a great way of working, and I'm up for that on project. But how do you see that would work? Are you talking about individual like sub projects, or are you talking about how to collaborate on a strategic level or on the tactical level? Like what level are you talking about?
Well, the way that I see it is like say TROM. I'm working on a TROM documentary now at the second part, and at one point I will need people to make a voiceover for it. In order to do that, I'll just ask people who want to do a voiceover. I send them the script, they send me the voice, and I'll do that. Or I may need to check some sources, and I will send people, I say, look, we have some chats wherever we have them. People will just come there. It doesn't have to be a central point. And I'll give them the whatever the script, and they can look over it, and they can comment. We have all kinds of tools that people can collaboratively comment and add sources or remove them and chat over that. We have all kinds of tools like that. Or the best way, for example, that I've realized to make people translate something is to make it very easily available. If you go on tromjaro.com, one of our projects, you can select a language and then select edit. You don't need any account, and you can start just translating it. It's quite beautiful because anyone can do it. We have live backups of that, so you can even restore work and so forth. So technology, you see, like TVP also talks about, technology allows us, for greater collaboration, and it's hands-on. It's much more useful as far as I've noticed from my experience, And if we release, for example, the Toronto documentary and TVP thinks that it's a good documentary, then what stays in the way from TVP to share it with their own community? Why do we have to have like a board meeting, about such things?
Oh, there's no need. There's no have to have a board meeting. Okay, there are other ways to collaborate, and this was just one suggestion of how this can work. And B, the benefit of having such a meeting or something similar is that you're sort of relying on spontaneously people doing things. Okay, so that would yield some results. Okay, but if you have people that are intentionally and in a focused manner assist with something, then it can progress more, obviously. So the way that if I understand your suggestion correctly, is sort of relying on random movement. Okay, like when you have a guest that has random movement. Okay, so there's almost no chance that all the guests would be in one side of the room. It always randomly moves in different directions. and you can compress that area and force it to be in a certain area of the room. Okay, so these are two ends of the spectrum, and you probably you should do something between, but the result would be different. Okay, there's a limited extent to what you can do when you have random people working and assisting with random things. For example, like people can come and work on the translation of the TROM books into Algerian. Okay, and that's what they would do, and they have no understanding whether that's the most important thing to do right now, or maybe they can contribute to other things that would be more beneficial to them and to the project. So so in that sense, if you make it too random and too open, then people, A, they can get lost because there are too many options, and B, they would be spread out on a lot of things that might not be as important as other things.
But you can make it probably, obvious, like what is more important. Like you can say it's very important to translate our documentary because it's our main tool. It's important. You should, like Aaron, who is, I can't even say that he's part of TROM project because he's his own thing in this world, right? He translated pretty much everything into German, and he did that. And I talked to him a lot. We even lived together for months. He did that because it was so easy. And I asked him, like, didn't you ever get involved with TVP or TZM and so forth? And he said that, as far as I remember, he tried with TZM, for example, but he was too, like, go to this group, that group, get approval, get to know each other, get your whatever, sometimes get consent, sometimes you have to sign stuff because there are some sensitive information and so forth. Maybe understandable, maybe not. I don't care, but what I'm saying is, like, there are obstacles. Like this guy put it very nicely in a TED Talk. It's like friction. Whenever there is friction, you will lose volunteers. And I realized that in my own experience. The more that they have to do, like register here, go into this group, whatever, read a big list of stuff, they won't do it. But for TROM, it works. Like many people translate. We have translated our websites in like 5 or so languages by a few people. And we have lots of materials there, lots of applications on TROM Gyro and so forth. And they do that because it's so easy, So I would like to see more of this kind of approach that works. Because the other one, I am not sure that it works in the first place. Let's take an example. Let's take translation of materials. I would say it works much better when you have a program like Amara.org, where anyone can go there and make a subtitle for whatever they want to, or edit the subtitle, rather than having a forum and bringing people there and selecting them whichever you want, and then giving them access to the text so they can translate. It's always a middleman or more middlemans there. So what do you think? Isn't this more efficient to let people do it with such technologies, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I much more like how TROM handles it than TVP or any other project in that sense, TZM or one community. So, and that's mostly utilizing up-to-date technologies, like not very high technologies. These are very simple things, mostly open source and stuff like that. You just need to implement, but they're not implemented in TVP currently, which is a problem, and a problem that everyone aware of. So this change is very welcome.
Yeah. You want
I think
to say?
there's a general, beside that, there's a general, theory or not theory, but there's you might say a theory, okay? Sort of like there's the theory of free market, right? Let everyone do everything randomly, okay? And assuming we have some mechanisms of incentive in place, then our society would align and be very well, and everyone would be happy and stuff like that. But the reality is not such. So some restrictions are set in place in order to, or not restrictions, but some guidelines or whatever, some priorities, some recommendations are created in order to make random movement more efficient and more directed in some direction, and not just in all directions. For example, there are some things in TROM that you make editable, while there are other things that they're not editable right now. Okay, like for example, if you go to the section of TROM, whatever TROM, I have that website open in the background, right? So if you have like but previously there was a menu. I don't see it now.
It has to be left side menu.
No, I don't have it on my browser. Maybe I need to.
That's strange.
It doesn't work for me. Yeah, but there was like a menu when you can see, I don't know if it's like the goals or the mission or the statement, stuff like that. So So there are things that you're not recommending to change very often, right? Like the general ideas of the project or the focus on trait free and stuff like that. So yeah, so eventually you decide, or the group decides, what should be, randomly sort of, you allow others to edit and modify and randomly change. And there are other things that are more directed and more aligned with some idea or some direction. And where the line crosses is not an obvious answer, okay? Because, very random system is not the most optimal thing, and very strict, organized, top-down, hierarchical, whatever system doesn't work very well as well. Okay, and I think it comes from that place where, when we don't know how things really work on the lowest level, we rely on randomness. Okay, like the markets, most people don't say that, okay, we don't know how people would react, we don't know people behavior and stuff like that, and let's just let them move randomly and try to set some rules and regulations and put people in jail if they don't do them and stuff like that. And there's that other end, for example, engineers, or doctors, okay, when a doctor treats something that's very obvious, there's no random, voting or guessing what that would be. This is very obvious protocol when the person has these and these symptoms, and you do all this procedure, and it's very obvious what that person has and how to treat that. You just do that. Okay, you don't rely on multiple opinions or other people that are not doctors expressing opinions, stuff like that. So the more you know how things actually work on the fundamental level, the less you rely on randomness. Okay, if you knew what's the best way to translate to Bulgarian, okay, you would just translate the Bulgarian, put it there, okay. But you don't know, because you don't know Bulgarian, so you let other people that know Bulgarian to some extent come and translate it, and then you do some average of that, and you bring up what looks best. So,
but we don't talk about like letting people do random things. We say specific things, like you translate this, or you help with that, like packaging something for TROM-Jar is a specific thing. It's not like a complete randomness. Like even in society, this so-called let people do whatever they want. Of course, it's just a theory, and then what happens? And the government comes and say, do what we tell you, and then it's China or it's US, or whatever. So neither way is good. It's a chaos, but. We talk about specific things, We talk about specific things. I want to talk more about that kind of approach. Like, tell me specific things, because we can theorize, of course, that maybe it's better to do this like that. I just give you some examples. Like, translation is one big example, because many people want to translate the materials in their own language. If they don't have TVP's materials or TROM materials in their own language, it's very hard for them to even share with someone in their own tribe, So that's what we approach translations. Other things, like we let people submit apps for TROM-Jar. We let people submit bugs if they want. We have a list of how to act. We let people come here and challenge TROM. Look, this is another one. If you really want, if someone will come and say, I want to make a TROM-Cast and challenge TROM about this particular subject, we say yes. We said that a few times, and we will keep on saying this. I would like for TVP to also have this kind of thing, so people can come there and challenge their own project. So we have specific ways that people can get involved. So what kind of specific ways can you tell me that are maybe better organized than this? Because I haven't found a way to like organize people who come and go. They're volunteers. They don't work every day. I work with two guys on websites, like TROM site. One from Brazil, another from Mauritius, Erico and Ziad. They disappear. Like, I don't know, this disappeared in one day. It's just, I was like, where is he? Like, maybe he's dead, but I realized he's not. I found him on the internet. But you see, they come and they just go. You cannot rely on such people. But when you open that, like in the open source, almost like, you rely on more people who comes and goes. You don't care that much. I'm not talking about surgeons, or scientists who, yes, they need a specific top-down approach to build a building or to operate on the heart. Of course, you need that. We talk about these organizations, So I would like to focus more on the realistic part of them. Like, tell me, like, now, what could we do now? Not just organize in theory. What could we do now? Because I'm always wondering that. I was talking to Sasha, because God bless me, I live with her in the same house, and I was talking to Sasha, and I'm like, okay, I would like to fuck these people, because many people have said let's collaborate. To tell me exactly how. Like, tell me, I'm here. I want to collaborate. Let's say, what can I do? What can I do?
Yeah, great. So so we can talk about specific projects of collaboration. One thing that you mentioned about, for example, the translations. Okay. So assist. Well, you need two things, right? You need the technology. Okay. You need actual people that work on it and advance it, right? I'm going in and I'm going to connect to the power supply because my battery is going to die soon. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's talk about the translations. Okay, you need two things. You need infrastructure, which is technology, right? And you need actual people. So in both cases, for example, let's imagine a system where you have both of these in a collaborative sense. Okay, because currently each of the organizations works or creates some infrastructure for translations. Okay, and each of those orgs have some people that do translations. Okay. So I would argue that both of these should collaboratively, okay. One a system, and this would benefit TVP a lot, and I think it would be easy to convince that that's a good project, to create a better system for translation. On the other hand, TVP has a lot of people that contribute to translation, okay, to other languages. So if those people would be part of the same, platform where they're present, work on translation of one project, that would be able to contribute to other projects as well. And currently there's no such thing. Okay, there's no such thing because there are silos. There's one system for TVP, there's one system for TROM, and there's a certain set of people that work here and certain set of people that work there. So yeah, that's an example, a practical example of something that can be done. Development of such a system where you can easily translate, and it can be implemented on TVP website, TROM website, or whatever. And I think TROM already has part of it done, or a lot of it done, on the technical side, okay? But obviously, TROM would progress more if there are more people working on it, both on the technology and on the actual translations.
Sasha?
So yeah, I would say just from my experience, that this translation in particular would be a bit difficult to have such a thing, because the way that TVP and the way that TROM do translations, and I was with TVP for a while as well, so TVP is very strict about their translations being very accurate. Because of that, they have a big process of going through translations and proofreading all of the translations, and being a part of this translation team to make sure that all the translations are quite accurate as possible. Whereas TROM has a very different approach, where basically TIO just makes it available so that anybody can go and translate. So where he doesn't worry so much, okay, if this is 100% accurate, is it not? He kind of trusts the translators to just do that if they want to. He doesn't even know, what someone translated necessarily. Right?
Because, and I want to mention this, it may sound maybe in theory like it's a better approach to make sure the translations are correct. In practical, from my experience with TVP and TROM also, it will be a pain in the ass, because you always have to have a top-down approach and someone to check those things. And there are multiple languages in the world, and it's always a process of checking and rechecking. It's a lot of work. Unless you have people who are really dedicated to this, you will slow down the work so much to the point of no return. TVP actually used to have the same system in place that we have at TROM for translations. I know very well, because I helped redesigning that website when like 2013 or something. And they completely ditched that, and I was completely against that. I was like, let's talk seriously about this. Don't just ditch everyone's translations of the website, And people were really pissed off, some people there, that they just completely removed those translations. So I would say yes. I would say this: what prevents people from TVP to translate stuff that we have at ROM? Nothing. They could go and they could translate them anytime they want. What prevents people from TROM, which again, I don't think are people from TROM, but whatever, Sasha or others, to go and translate from TVP? And I would say friction. friction will prevent them because it's not as easy as, okay, I go and translate that. If it would be as easy, people will not care. It's TROM TVP, they will just help multiple projects. In open source, that's how they do. They help multiple projects, not just one particular project. Many times, the developers, they'll help multiple projects, So that's my input.
Yeah. So there are a few things raised. I don't think neither of the solutions is very optimal, because on the one hand, TROM might have people that do not really understand the ideas, translating it in a very different manner, adding cryptocurrency, whatever, where it shouldn't be or whatnot, when they translate a different language, and there's no idea to influence that. Okay, so you would have TROM ideas perceived very differently in different countries just because that specific individual decided to translate it in different manner. So that the disadvantages of that are obvious, and the advantages of you actually have more translations than you would have if you'd had a lot of limitations. And the same for TVP. There are disadvantages because I agree that there's tons and too much friction, which can be solved, regardless of this method or that method. There should be less friction in using technological system, and that's quite outdated what TVP uses. But the advantages that you have, eventually the outcome, the output is more reliable. Okay, you know better that people that would be exposed to these materials would understand these ideas correctly, and you can have you can enjoy both worlds if you think of a third system, which would be sort of combination of the good things in both, and would eliminate the bad things in both. So, for example, do you know Minds.com? Mm-hmm. Right, sort of like a social network that's supposed to be better in some way. So they have a nice translation system where, again, anyone can go in and start translating stuff, and they get they see the a sentence, and they need to translate it, and it pops up, and like you complete it, next one pops up, next one. So it's very very easy to use, and you have multiple people doing the same thing. And then you can compare. Okay, so if you see a lot of people agreeing on one type of translation, okay, then you're taking that automatically. Okay, and if you see a lot of disagreement, then you need to decide what to do. But in most cases, you would have a lot of people that agree on something, and then you'd have other results that do not align with that. And when you do your translation, you see what others did. Okay. So that way, it also saves you a lot of time by choosing something that someone else did and not just doing it all over, like writing your own translation. So there can be solutions that that do both. They're both easy to use and they benefit from some sort of quality control.
And the big downside, I understand that, and you can have control even with what we have. We can make it so that only some moderators will approve translations. It's not that difficult. But the problem is that you rely on other people constantly. And if those people don't do their job very well, or they don't do it, then you end up with a website that is not translated. Because, for example, for the past several years, as far as I know, TVP translated mainly their main book and some videos. But the website, for example, is not translating in any languages. Isn't that because of a bit of a friction in the process how to translate this, or how is that working at TVP right now?
What I talked about Minds, there's no no one that's eventually supposed to moderate it. Okay, it's automatically when there's a translation that's agreed by most people that reviewed it, then that's what's accepted. So you can
that's
do
great
something
then.
Where and this is not what TVP is currently doing, and this should change. And most people, I think, in TVP realize that this system that's currently in place is very, very unoptimal. But there's no one to come and change and do a better system because, again, focus. Okay.
But actually, that's a good point here. If we talk about collaboration, why is it that in TVP this doesn't change? Because you probably should collaborate inside and change this. How is the collaboration working inside the TVP, for example?
Well, in TVP, I don't think it's collaboration. It's just focus. Okay, the focus now is on creating more materials in English okay, and recovering a lot of the materials that Jack created, a long time ago, and expanding on that knowledge. So there's no real focus on translation. Okay, so there's some infrastructure that people use and translate to their own language, but it's not the focus of the project. Which for other projects, maybe for TROM it is a focus, and then TROM in this case, would help with, or not help, but even TROM would develop the system that TVP can contribute to some extent, and then to be used by all projects. So it all, for TVP, I think it's a matter of focus. It's not that it's not important, because eventually more people expose the projects, more supporters, more volunteers. But you can only focus on so many things when you have limited people working on the project.
I don't see what prevents us from still helping each other in this kind of areas if we recognize these areas. Like if you say, oh, TROM, it's very easy to translate stuff from TROM. Why aren't people from TVP helping with that? Because as I said, we talk about TVP. I don't think many people know about TROM, but pretty much everybody who knows about TROM knows about TVP, and they know that it's not as easy. I mean, as I've heard that from many people who got involved with TVP in translating lots of material, actually, it's not as easy. It's a lot of friction. But what prevents us really from collaborating? Because from my perspective, I collaborate with TVP in the sense that I promote. I did a lot back in the days. I know I went through so many of their materials. Like TROM documentary was seen. I know back then it was like a few hundred of thousands of people looking at Vimeo stats. So it was a lot about TVP. What does TVP do? What prevents us? I still don't. I feel like uncomfortable a bit because I don't know how to put this. But what prevents us? If what prevents us is that we need some meetings and so forth, I'm extremely skeptical that it's hard for me to say. I don't know what prevents us from collaborating, because from my perspective, we kind of collaborate with others.
Yeah, well, it's a bit anecdotal, but it's like saying I dance with her. Okay, she doesn't participate in it, but I dance with her. Okay, so sort of collaboration. It's when you work with someone. So
why doesn't she dance with me? Huh?
Yeah.
I want to dance with her. I'm like inviting to a dance, and she's like,
yeah, well,
I don't want to talk
if
to you.
you want to dance, that's fine. But if you're saying I already dancing with her, she's just not dancing with me, then this is sort of collaboration is when two people work together on something. So you might do like this is not collaboration, what you're saying, because TVP doesn't collaborate on that. Okay.
So I'm asking the girl, why don't you dance with me? I want to dance with you. Why don't you dance with me, girl?
Yeah, and this is where I think that a better communication would resolve a lot of those issues. Okay, because like it took us multiple hours to go through the discussion of problems and should we talk only about one problem and should we focus on maybe other problems and the distinction between problems and solutions. So only once we establish that we could talk about collaboration. And I think these basic discussions or basic understandings that we were trying to build on do not exist right now between a lot of people in TVP and TROM and stuff like that. So this is essential, this kind of communication understanding before you can talk about collaboration. Because when you start, when every discussion leads to those basic things about, no, we should talk only about trade, or no, we should talk only about this feature society and stuff like that. If you always come back to that, then you cannot make any discussion. It would always come to those disagreements.
And here's the problem with that, because like I said, I was discussing with Gil from TVP, and I said to him, let me. I need a bit of time to understand why don't we collaborate and so forth. I make this big book, whatever, and then we make 2 TROM-Casts or 3 TROM-Casts about that book, and I invite people from other organizations, especially from TVP. We invited them. We sent some emails. We contact them. Let's discuss why our disagreements and so forth. And I'm not sure if Gil also said that, but they didn't even read my proposal, like the book that we were discussing, but they participated and they disagree with that, So that's not collaboration, I wanted to explain exactly that. I invite people, and I still invite them. I invite them in, let's discuss it publicly. We call it TROM-Cast, but it's a discussion. It's public, so other people can learn from the discussion. I do that. I feel like let's discuss where are our differences, and I laid it out. I think quite all right, why I think the way I think, and why I feel like TVP's focus is not in line with TROM. But we don't go anywhere, it seems like, because how can we discuss and be on the same track? I don't know. We've made so many TROM-Casts. I discuss so much with people from TVP, and it doesn't lead anywhere. I don't know if it's my fault. I don't know. I feel like I explain quite well, but is it my fault? I don't know. How do you think?
I've listened to those TROM-Casts. Okay, with Gwil. Well, there was one with Gwil, and there was another one with someone else, a CDP supporter. I think it was about
something. Yeah, but just to mention, I had with Gil a private discussion for many hours. Actually, we recorded back and forth, so that wasn't posted. But just so you mentioned,
Yeah. So with Gwil, it wasn't, the purpose of the discussion wasn't to find common ground. Okay, the purpose of the discussion, from what it looks like in the conversation, is Gwil trying to prove that you're moving the target, and that why there's no way of disprove or prove whatever you're saying. And your purpose was to show that trade should be the focus. So when the purpose of this discussion purposes does not align, that's how the discussion eventually develops. It was heated discussion when I didn't think there was any outcome that's beneficial to any side there. But that other discussion that was before that was more peaceful, and there was a lot of understanding. So if you're, it's very important. What's your individual goal in when you're coming to this kind of discussion? Okay, if both sides come with the intent to find common ground and to collaborate, then a positive outcome is likely. But if your outcome is to show the other side why they're wrong in something, good luck with that. So it very much depends how you come to the discussion. And I don't know how, I don't think you're to blame. I don't think there's anyone specific to blame, whatever. But I don't think there was a discussion where both sides came with the intent to find a way to collaborate or to help each other in some way. So
it was a discussion where I showcase how collaboration could happen, because that's how the book starts. The book starts like, why can't we collaborate? And my entire premise, what Yuri will say, your entire premise is wrong, even though I didn't read your book, but my premise was completely wrong. My entire premise was that if you focus on the problem, again, you can collaborate with each other. You don't have to be under the same umbrella. So I said, I made this book. Let's discuss, let's discuss it, because that's the core thing. Like, it's connected with collaboration 100%. If you understand that, it will be no discussion, no debates. If people will understand, if people will say, yes, I think if you look at the world, and after maybe reading my book or not, just look at the world, yes, this trade-based society fucks things up pretty much in every domain. I agree with that. If they will say that, then okay, go ahead, do whatever you think. Imagine a world of the future where trade is obsolete. Yes, you can also put on top other kind of like what you do with the cake icing. Let's talk about behavior, let's talk about automation, But if your core is like, let's get rid of this problem, then we collaborate, because I will share TVP stuff. I will ask them to maybe collaborate with them or whatever things. Although I have my experience with TVP, but others will help them or will help us. I'm not sure if I get this thing across, but I'm not sure if you understand this, Alex, what I'm trying to say here. Look, aging, I've been looking at how they were nothing when they were fighting against aging 10 years ago. No one heard about this. I really kept an eye on them. It's livescience.com or the Aubrey de Grey Sense Foundation and so forth. They got so much traction over the years. And from what I observed, and I know a few people from there, actually, this Rico guy actually works with these people. See how he moved. The goal, the reason that they became more popular and they became to do something is because they had a very simple vision. Aging fucks things up, and then someone publishes an article, a scientific article, showcasing how damage of the cells creates aging, then they promote that. They funded sometimes. They have a founding website. They found them with donation campaigns, all kinds of researches, because it doesn't matter what organization is there. So that's what I observed. I hope you understand this. That's how I observed. With these organizations, they grow because they focus on the problem. It's quite clear, the problem inside. So what I hoped is if we focus on that with this trade, is say, okay, trade is really a big problem. Other organizations will come along, and if TVP will say, yes, trade is the source of most problems, and we have this vision of the future where trade is obsolete, and we have a lot to add to that, like how the systems will work, how the education, how this and that. We will be pretty much talking about the same thing, and we don't even have to like be friends with each other, because we will fight in the same direction, and we can promote more stuff for TVP. It's the best that I could explain.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that you said. TROM focuses on problems, or focuses on one problem and covers a few others. But if you talk about but TROM doesn't focus on a lot of problems. Okay, TROM focuses on certain problems, I think, and covers many more. Okay, but like I think by reading the books, you can say that the focus, there is a clear focus. At least now. At first, it was very, very broad. Like, look at all those books in the TROM TROM library. It's very, very diverse and covers a lot of things. But then in the last year or two, there's a very big focus, right, on trade.
That is because 2-3 years ago, I moved away from TVP. And those books are actually for TV magazine or TV magazines, and then they're both the focus on like a lot broad, like it was like this future society. And then I learned, may I be wrong or not, but I present why I learned that focusing on this problem called trade that gives rise to pretty much all of the problems, not just a few problems, then it's a much better focus. That's why those books didn't have quite a goal, because I felt like when I left from TVP, I felt like, okay. I had this idea in mind, but I was like, TVP kind of gives you a goal. I may not agree now entirely with their goal or their approach, but it gives people a goal. It's quite unreachable, if you ask me, in the sense that you have to follow TVP. You cannot do more than that. You can help them here and there, but you need to build like models of the society and so forth. Well, I moved to this other thing that anyone can reach at. Anyone can say, yeah, I get the idea. Trade is a source of most problems. Let's do something about it. If TVP will be on the same line, they will say, maybe let's help TVP build that community where they want to get rid of this problem called trade, So, and if others, by the way, others want to get, like Noel or others, just don't feel shy. You just interrupt us, whatever you want to say something. Because I end up discussing only with me and Alex, and I'm sorry for the rest.
You can raise your hand whenever. There's a button for
That's fine.
Okay, Alex.
Well, so regarding aging, you have someone that focuses on the problem, and you have the other companies that they sort of rely on that offer some solutions. Because if you only say, okay, there's a problem, but there's no one offering any solutions, then you're screwed. So even in your aging example, there's someone that focuses on reviewing the problems, and there's someone who focuses on some solutions, and there are others that focus on other solutions. So this is sort of a similar relationship where TVP focuses on a certain solution or solutions, and TROM focuses on the problems. Okay, and I don't think there's any contradiction here. I think that I think that if both sides realize or acknowledge that the other side is not contradicting to what they're saying, they're complementing it, then the collaboration would be very easy to do. Okay. For example, there are tons of materials that TVP creates that obviously you share and use, but there are a lot of other materials that you just don't have. So more updated stuff, so that you could use in TROM's books and stuff like that, or more developed ideas that are not yet published, or those 800 lectures that are being transcribed now, which would make them digitally queryable, and not just recordings with very bad audio and stuff like that. And on the other hand, TVP can benefit a lot from what TROM is doing, and both on the technology side and some of the materials. And I think that what was difficult for TVP just to take TROM materials and share them and distribute them is that exclusive focus on something, saying, okay, we should tackle that, and that's it. Okay. and that makes it very difficult, because it's sort of, if you're talking about that in a very exclusive way, then it sort of contradicts some of the things that TVP is saying, and then you need to, it's not that easy to just share those ideas as they are.
And you see, that's where the non-collaboration comes about. If we don't agree with each other's approach, TVP will say, like, well, TROM focuses only on this thing, we focus on this more holistic thing, and therefore we can't really share what TROM is doing, like you said, right? You said that, and in to make the parallel with aging, I feel like maybe TROM is more like focused on aging and trying to define that and why it's a problem. On top of it, showcasing other people working on solutions to that, while TVP may say, well, let's talk about human health in general. Let's talk about human health and make a system where we take care of human health and so forth, which is great, but I feel like it's such a high goal, and it's nothing really practical there. Like, I could say, look, TVP, aging kills between 100,000 people and 150,000 a day, related to aging. Most deaths occur because of that. Let's focus on that. Yes, there are other health problems, but if your approach is so like holistic, let's deal with human health, and then talk about how in the future we could like solve human health by, I don't know, doing all kinds of automation and then all kinds of research centers, all kinds of new hospitals. I think that's great, but to me, it's out there. It's not that realistic, and that's where I think our differences come about. I'm not even saying I'm wrong or you're right or whatever, but that's where the differences will come about if I make the parallel with the aging research.
Kind of like making a model of a really healthy human.
Yeah.
Rather than figuring out, okay, well, what is it that makes this human unhealthy? Age in particular.
Yeah, I think what with the parallel of TROM with aging is that, that organization talks about aging, it would say, aging is the biggest problem in the world. Come on, drop out of the world. Do only that. We have to eliminate aging and stuff like that. So that would make it very difficult for some organizations, to share those ideas because they are very exclusive. Okay, they're not inclusive, and I don't think that's the only problem why TVP haven't shared the materials. But it's one of the things that would need to can be resolved from discussions like we do now, and to reach understanding, then each of those things should exist, okay? And not saying, okay, only TROM should exist, and we should all humanity should focus only on the problems, and we shouldn't say that all humanity should focus on solutions if we don't yet understand all the problems and how they influence each other. So I think if both sides realize that both sides are important, okay, then it would be easy to do. But if each side thinks that people should exclusively work on what they do, then it would make it very difficult to collaborate. And
you cannot go.
I think
you cannot go to those people who talk about aging and say, "Hey guys, we're working like this model of how the human health should be in the future and so forth. Yes, we may also include aging, but we include all kinds of other things." They'll be like, "Okay, great, but we have to have a specific, realistic, and real focus." Aging, statistically, kills by far the most people. Most of the people in the world are killed by aging. Statistically, you can look at the numbers. That's why the focus is on that. It's not like we ignore the other things. So if TVP wants to if TVP is like this holistic approach of human health, and I focus on aging, then it means that we are separated, and we cannot maybe focus on that. If TVP doesn't focus on aging, it's not very specific. It's very like in general human health, which I think is great, but I think we should have more practical approaches. Same is with trade. We have to have more practical approaches, because that's what creates most of the problems, like I explained. Yeah,
I think the main difference is that TVP doesn't focus on the problems. Okay, so I don't think there's contradiction there. TVP focuses on solutions. Okay,
but how can you focus on solutions if you don't focus on the problems? So what are you trying to solve?
If you don't
what are
agree
you trying
on the
to solve?
problem,
Yeah, what are you trying to solve then?
I don't think there's a disagreement on the problems. I think that anyone would in TVP would agree that trade is a huge problem in our society. Okay, TVP just acknowledges that we should address all of the problems when we design a solution, because if we address only a certain range of problems, even if they're, well, you're saying trade is the source of most problems. What is most? 60%, 70%, 80%? How do you measure that? And even if it's 99%, how do you know that the rest 1% wouldn't ruin everything? Like if you have it's enough to put a little bit of cyanide in a big jar of water to kill a person. Okay, so.
I understand, Alex, but these are like, what's the TVP? It was a lot of theory. It could be in theory, it could be this in theory, it could be that. But if you look at the world, like I said last time, give me some examples that are not created by trade, or highly pushed by trade or amplified by trade, So it's not like we focus on just this trade and then there are some other things. It's almost like saying people who focus on aging is like, yeah, but there are also other problems, like diseases. And I'll say, yes, I agree, but I don't think it's realistic. Tell me what kind of institution is really focusing on the general health. Even those have specific kind of institutions underneath their own umbrella. If you focus on let's make the human health, let's make the human body healthy generally, to me sounds almost like a shaman, trying, because I'm asking you, what's the problem? What do you try to solve? Just all of the problems, yeah, you say there are a plethora of problems, with the kidneys, genetical, aging, and so forth. And to me, it sounds like a shaman if you don't focus exactly on a problem. That's how medicine evolved, specifically focusing cancer, heart disease, now aging, or whatever. That's what I'm trying to do with TROM. And I feel, after I experienced TVP, that TVP focuses in theory, about the human health, if you want to put it in that perspective. In theory, what could we do to make a better, a better health for humans? That's what I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're saying what is the problem? It assumes that there is only one. Okay, so in your question, you're only allowing a certain range of responses. So
aging is not one problem. Aging is not one problem. Aging is a word that describes a plethora of problems. It's a trigger, from heart disease, cancer. Actually, it's actually very connected to that, and strokes and so forth. I just want to say with trade, yeah, it's a word. Don't get tricked by one word. Trade is our system, the entire system, moving shit from China to US and so forth. Sasha
was trying to say
something. No, I was just going to say that, TVP has an idea for a different type of society, a different system. So you have to ask yourself, why? What's wrong with this system? Because you'll say, what's the problem there? Oh, the whole system is the problem. But I think you need to take, and that's how I used to think as well. The whole system is a problem. Fuck this system. Let's build another system. TVP has this model of a much better system. But I think it's essential to take one extra step and ask, well, what is it about this system that's so problematic, that's causing the system to be like this, that's causing humans to behave in such a shitty manner? And when I asked before I left TVP, I had this long conversation. I think you were still in the POC chat, right? I had this long conversation with the POCs. I brought this up. People didn't actually, they were very aggressive towards me when I brought up even the subject. Some people said it was not appropriate to speak about that in the TVP chat. So I didn't find them to be very open to even discuss the problems. But I thought the biggest kind of problem was that they disagreed. They had different answers for what's the problem with this entire system. Some said money, some said scarcity, some said distribution of resources. So it was kind of a bit all over the place. Of course, I understand your meaning that okay, this system is so fucked up, it creates a shit ton of problems. But I think in order to actually arrive at a solution, rather than just think of an entirely different system separate with no idea how to get there from our society, you need to study this system and understand how it works. What are the problems that are causing shitty behavior? What are the problems that are causing, this plethora of shit, of crap?
Yeah. And in that, I totally understand. And your discussion in the POC chat is it doesn't have the right form of people to to discuss those fundamental ideas. These are people that are also learning. So if someone said that maybe it's not the appropriate place to make a discussion, I don't think it represents, the entire approach of all people that are involved in this, or the majority of them. So
but these are very people that have been involved for a long time in TVP, like years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
So even Roxanne is in that chat, although she didn't participate then, which is no problem. Of course, maybe she wasn't even there, but yeah.
I'm
not sure even what Roxanne would think about these ideas about trade and all this stuff, because I don't know.
I haven't heard anything from her that contradicts anything about TROM. So I don't see that grave contradiction between investigating and looking at the problems. It's sort of like, TVP covers a lot of problems, but it moved on to the solutions. Okay, and TROM went more in depth into their current society problems. And some might argue that there's no point of taking a pile of shit and looking all the problems there and finding a way to live in that pile of shit. Okay, well, you could do that, and there's a lot of things to learn about shit. But in some cases, you might want to take that pile of shit and repair it and whatever. In other cases, you might want to set up your camp somewhere else where there's no pile of shit.
But that's the thing. You cannot set your camp somewhere else because
full
the
of shit,
pile of
this planet.
shit already exists. So you have to change the pile of shit. You have to figure out how to grow flowers from it. And in order to do that, you have to study it and see what seeds you can implement into the pile of shit so that flowers will grow. And then one day the shit will disappear. Otherwise, you can't just, from this earth, it's covered in shit. Like, there's no escaping the shit. So that's the thing. We can't go to another planet. We can't start from scratch. Even if we went to another planet, we would bring the shit with us, like Mars wants to do.
Exactly.
He'll shit on Mars, and then
he'll shit first on Mars, and then.
So that's the problem.
Yeah, I guess my example wasn't very good. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, well, maybe this is this question between should we drain the shit, or should we try to make shit compost and plant flowers and so on. So.
But I think if you don't understand the shit, you don't understand that it can be compost. I think people back in the days, they did the same. They take the shit and put it away. Here in Spain, they take the shit. Sometimes it smells even in the city, but all of the good apples that are grown here, they take the shit and then grow apples and whatever. You can use the shit for many things. The point here is study the shit, and then you can probably grow something out of it.
Well, I think that at some point you would need to say, okay, I understand shit well enough to continue investigating it, but also develop what I'll be doing after the shit is gone. Okay, which kind of flowers, what the flowers would look, how to make it sustainable, how they produce fruits, whatever. So
Wikipedia, it's a flower out of the shit. Linux is a flower out of the shit. Many open source projects, Doctors Without Borders. We have a trade free directory where we say we found these rare flowers that pop out of this shit, and we say it can be done. That's what we say, actually. Let's not make people understand that we don't showcase solutions. I want to focus on the problem, but we showcase so many solutions. Go to tradefree.org, and you will see there are so many organizations that are what we call trade free, and we explain why they are trade free. There are lots of flowers like this. So I think such a great analogy with the shit, actually, because it kind of says quite a lot. I agreed with TVP at first, and okay, let's take this thing and put it away and let's build something new. I just don't feel like it's possible. I don't feel like it's possible in any way. And I wish TVP a luck to do that. And I will keep an eye on TVP from time to time, keep an eye on TVP. But I don't see anything happening for the past 10, 20 years with TVP. Is the same things are we talk about the same things.
The dream, I feel like it's envisioning flowers while you're standing on a shit.
We could talk about shit for the rest of the podcast.
I don't think I disagree with anything that you said. I also think what I said aligns with what you said. We should create solutions. We should take ourselves out of the shit. Okay. But eventually, at some point, we're talking about our society shit and stuff like that. But this society has a lot of stuff in place. Okay, with all the bad shit, we still have products that you can get in Walmart or whatever, or you can buy online. And there's a plethora of different things that were developed in this shitty society. Okay, so it's not totally like absolutely everything is pieces of shit. So there are some things. So we need to create some alternatives. Okay, for those things in the standard society, in the future society, and everything that's in place now would have to be eventually evolve or be replaced or whatever word we attach to it into something that's more optimal or better. So the question is, at which point you want to think about those long-term, broad solutions, that encompass not only random people develop random stuff, but making sure that everyone has access to good health, and making sure that everyone has access to food, making sure that everyone, are safe. So in that sense, you cannot do it random, because you'd always have pockets of the society where shit is still there. So TVP only tries to think of solutions that are more infrastructural, are more broad, but it doesn't offer, totally agree with you, it doesn't offer any short-term solutions or a way to get to the long term. And I'm fine with that, because I think that is where collaboration comes in place, where additional organizations can offer solutions in the interim, in the short term, in the long term, and how we eventually reach to that dream. Okay.
Why doesn't TVP find it? When I struggled with discussion too, when I was at TVP, why don't they find these current present-day solutions as important, as far as I understand, to just showcase, look, guys, it's possible. Look at these big projects of hundreds, thousands of people, millions, and showcase, look, it's possible. But we could also aim further than that based upon this. That's what I tried to do actually with TV Magazine. I put a lot of effort there with automated autonomous world, with volunteers and so forth. For me, it was in the end a demonstration of how a society like TVP could work. But since I left TVP, I'm not sure, and even before that, I'm not sure that they use many examples or at all. I felt, here's the thing, Alex, I felt when I was at TVP, they tell me, or whatever I read through their materials, that this society is such a pile of shit that there is nothing to do with this society. It's put it aside. Don't even think about it. Is this new kind of society that we could build, because it's such a rotten society today, is nothing to do about it. And I feel like I made myself a bit blind, because for one, no, there are a lot of flowers. And second, society, as far as I know, from all of my knowledge, and I will learn more about this, but doesn't change like that. Doesn't change of showcasing a model of a different society. Society always emerges from other societies. We don't go from the Roman Empire to the US Empire, which in many regards are similar. We don't go from this to that in creating a model of the US Empire. There are all kinds of forces, that push us there. Don't you see that? Don't you think that these examples are more from the internet and so many collaborative projects to volunteers and so forth? Don't you think that they're important enough that they can grow and make more flowers if we promote the other flowers? So don't you think that they will grow faster and they can change something in society now and for the long run, not just short term, rather than imagining a future society and we see what we can do about that? Don't you think that these examples are important though in that long run? Not just short term, like you say, just long run.
Yeah, of course they're important. Well, I don't. Well, when you say that, TVP or Jacques said, this is all shit. We have to drain it and build everything from scratch. It is just. It's not literally, and you can see that by no one says in TVP that you should take all technologies developed in this society, destroy them, obliterate them, and develop everything from scratch. No,
I think Jack even said he will level out the cities. I even put it in TROM documentary. He will level out the cities and build new cities. He's from his Jack's mouth, I think.
Yeah. Well, obviously, when he speaks to us, to broad audience, he has to speak a certain way to draw attention. So some of the things that he's saying are obviously exaggerations. Obviously, those materials would better be recycled than just flattened.
But still, it's a start from scratch, right?
Yeah. No, I was just kidding. So in that sense, a lot of the things that are developed in society in form of knowledge is kept. Okay, and TV talks about we will use these technologies in the future in a better way. There's nothing bad or good with technology. Technology is all a matter of how you use it, and Jacques talks about it a lot. So there's no point, there's no intention to destroy everything and build everything from scratch. Okay, Jacques sometimes argued that cities, in the way that they are built, okay, cannot be efficiently modified to something better from the way it is built now. Okay, you'd be better off to build a new city, and eventually allow people to transition to that. Because taking New York and making it a different city, okay, that's crazy. Okay, you have to remove a lot of those things and bring back new. So you might be better off just building it on a place that doesn't have anything right now.
But when you talk about these big grandiose ideas and say something like this, you make this assumption that it's better to level out the cities and build new ones. If you don't have some backing of such a claim and some details, it's mostly just an idea, right? That people can, fantasize about or not. If you don't have that's what I tried to see with TVP when I was writing the magazine about automation or their project. I was like, can you give me more details about your project? I want to know why around dome-shaped houses are more efficient than square, and I couldn't get any communication. I couldn't get anything written by Jack or explained in more detail, because there are many, many questions, from piping to solar panels, that maybe they're more expensive in terms of resources to make them round and so forth. Furniture inside, is it a water collection? I had many questions. I didn't get any answer. So this was always my problem with TV, because they talk in a way that as if that they have the knowledge, and you have to trust them that it's better to level out cities and build new ones. But is it? Is it though? Did you question is it? Do you really have more knowledge about this, more explanations? Or is it just some ideas that are nice ideas, but who knows? Maybe Jack exaggerates sometimes, like you say.
Yeah, obviously it's a hypothesis, okay, of a society. It's this society never been built, never been implemented in a sense where you can absolutely prove that those ideas exist. But like everything in science, you have a hypothesis which is built on the knowledge, the solid knowledge that you have. Okay, so I can say built, but a hypothesis draws from a lot of concrete knowledge that you have. For example, how people behavior is influenced by their environment. Okay, or principles of industrial design, of how you design a home, whatever, or systems thinking of how you take huge amount of resources and you mobilize them between many different individuals or stuff like that. So there are a lot of concrete things that were developed, and they are this theory, this hypothesis draws from them. So yeah, this is to be proven. Obviously, there's no proof that this is the best thing, and Jack always never said that this is the best thing. He argued that this is better than we have now. And what we should do is not build dome buildings, okay? What we should do is that when we build buildings, we account for how they affect human behavior of the people that live in them. That's it. That's the general idea. Okay, he made concrete designs and built some dome buildings in Venus, Florida. Okay, but not all of them are domes. Some of them are cylindrical, whatever. Okay. And if you look at the city design, not all of the buildings are round, okay, or dome shaped. Some of them are, some of them not. And this is just demonstrate a lot of different ideas that he had. But I don't look at TVP as as a sketch. Okay, as you said, there were many ideas in the past of taking the society and thinking it as a complete system, and and designing society according to that. But currently, those organizations don't really exist. Okay, those that lived in whatever in the 60s and the 40s and the 30s, and there is one organization now that sort of takes these ideas and draws from them and tries to implement them. So that's why, I sort of support this, but I also support stuff like TROM.
Yeah, when you try to also build this kind of world, I think TVP really need a lot more materials, at least in the educational aspect of it, because let's go back to collaboration. Let's say I want to share stuff from TVP. I want to talk about TVP, but to me, I consumed TVP in my view. I consumed it a while ago because I don't know what to talk. I can talk in theory like, oh, look at this beautiful kind of society, but it's just that, I feel like it's more powerful to give present days examples of how some environments change behaviors for the good or change products to be better than just be some crappy products that just made for consumption. So if you want to collaborate with TROM, for example, as TVP, I don't know even what to do with TVP's materials. Even if TVP will say, okay, take everything that we have online, because maybe they say they have more offline, but take whatever. I don't know what to do with that, because for me, it's an inspirational story, and that's what it is. It doesn't lead me much to anywhere. I'll still do the same TROM, the same TROM work, to see, what's in, to take examples from the society and showcase to people like realistic ways. I think some may say, but people, you didn't discuss much about collaboration. I think we discussed, because the thing is that we don't quite agree there with our start. I think overall we agree that it's a pile of shit, but we say that we can grow something out of it, and TVP may say, okay, maybe you can grow something out of it, but we have to have this bigger vision in the future. And what I say back is like the bigger vision in the future is not based on much so far, as far as I can see, and it doesn't help me much just to project that. I would say without these flowers in the shed, the vision for the future is just completely outrageous in my mind. It's like it's nothing. People will dismiss it entirely. But only with those flowers in the shed, that vision may come into fruition sometimes. Can we combine both of them? Maybe. Let's see let these things grow. But I think if you want to force organizations under the same roof, it doesn't work. Like, look at TVP and TZM. Why did they split? It was a big fucking scandal. I remember this. Even now, you can find these audio recordings, like Peter Joseph cursing at Roxanne. They were like this. I remember when I left from TVP, I also felt really shitty about the entire situation. I can talk so much about this. I think we'll make a TROM-Cast about experiences we had with TVP. We didn't even get into that yet. I don't think it works based on the past. I don't think it works. I think you are such one of the nicest people at TVP that I know. You and Ray. I think Ray, if Ray is still around, I think Ray was such a great friend. I worked with Ray for many years. You're such good people, but I don't think we can solve this, not because of you or of me. I think it's because we talk about different kind of approaches, and they are so not intertwined, at least in some people's minds that are behind those projects, that it just doesn't work. So I don't know what to do about this. I don't think it's going to work to do anything. Yeah. I'm here. If you want something for me or for TROM people, you have this discussion chat. You can tell them, look, people, have a discussion with TVP. Come there, participate. You can tell whatever you want. Hopefully, if TVP will also open the doors and people will say, look, these people from TROM, we need help with some things. Come discuss with them. That's a start. Do you agree with me? That's a start. Open some doors to live for a start.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, like, this is the similar discussion I'm having with TVP, and I would have more discussions of it in TVP to bring all of those sides to some common ground. Okay, so this is, like, for me, the meeting is successful so far, because like what you said now is what I was trying to get at. You're saying, okay, if others do, then I would do. Okay, because for now it was like I wouldn't do because none of them are doing, and each would say I'm not doing this because none of them is doing. Okay, so I want to start with a point where each would say, well, if others do, I would do as well, and then we can move on from there.
Why didn't we do that, others? Like, I think we did. Did we talk a lot about TVP and Zeitgeist? We shared stuff. If you look now at TROM's social networks, I think for the past weeks, we shared a bunch of videos with Jack, a bunch of videos with TVP about the Venus project, even though I may not find it as relevant today as I found them when I made them. But, I don't think... where are TVP people here? You say that maybe you are a TVP there, but do you represent TVP? Can you take decisions there at TVP?
There's no one single person that makes decisions in TVP, so I cannot make decisions on my own. but I interact a lot with people that work on TVP. So the organization can change what they're doing, okay, if I weigh in on certain things to some extent.
Did you
Like, for
try to talk to
example,
them?
yeah,
Did
obviously.
you, about TROM, for example, and our idea, and because you say that TROM and TVP collaborate, did you talk with them about TROM?
Not specifically on TROM. I was talking about general idea of collaboration, and TROM was one example of things of areas where collaboration is possible. But what I'm trying to do is open up TVP and open other organizations as well into collaboration. Okay, and it doesn't have to be only. My hope is that it's not going to be collaboration only between two organizations, but with multiple organizations in this field. And you're saying, okay, you're sharing already TVP's materials, but I think TVP can benefit from many other things besides you sharing materials. Okay, like for example, critical thinking. Okay, well, what you're doing and going over a lot of materials and raising questions and floating up, things that are missing. Okay, so this is not very pleasant, maybe to Roxanne, because she already she's busy, or maybe she already discussed it with many different other people. But I think as an organization in its entirety, it would benefit when there's a lot of criticism towards everything all the time. Okay, like TROM is benefiting now. When in many meetings you're saying you're asking for questions, you're asking to challenge that. So I think
yes, I think you make a good point there. Where and I wish I will hear Roxanne or others, because in the end, as far as I know, at least Roxanne is still the one who will have probably the last word. If you want to do something with TVP, you have to go to Roxanne. Be it or not like that, I would love to see Roxanne or others thinking that criticism is welcome. Why isn't TVP? How is TVP taking criticism? Is criticism reaching TVP? What did you observe there with criticism? Is that reaching them, or just criticism in some lonely forest, that doesn't reach TVP at all?
Yeah, so there are two things that you asked about, whether Roxanne is making all decisions. Well, no, because a lot of this the organization now is a non-for-profit that has a board of like 4 people. Now that Jack died, and so major decisions are made in this board, okay, which includes Theo and Nate, and so it's not Roxanne doesn't exclusively make decisions. In fact, some things like, for example, Roxanne cannot just publish stuff on Facebook or YouTube, whatever. There's agreement. There's a group of people that work on social media, and they have to agree. She cannot publish anything. She cannot share anything on social media without getting some feedback on some criticism about what's being published. So this is a very different approach from TROM, but yeah. So in that sense, Roxanne is very influential and very central, very important project. But she's not like a one-man show dictator or whatever that says whatever should be done, and that's what is done.
Of course, it's worth to mention that depends what people have around you, because if people are not very criticizing with TVP, then if they just do whatever you say, like I've been at TVP for 4 years, I've been into some debates or discussions about all kinds of things to change. As far as I can tell, nothing changed from what I proposed, and I try to propose so many things. I don't even want to open that can of worms, whatever you call them. So from my experience, it's very different. I was also an admin for their Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube at one point. I was posting a lot of stuff there. So I know very well from there it has to go. Everything I've made for TVP, and I was a TV magazine, I wrote a lot of stuff, had to go to Jack and Roxanne first for approval. It will not let me post something that was not going through them. So that's my experience. I really have to say that, because it's important. It's not paint. Maybe today is different, I doubt, but that's how it was. A few years ago.
That was my experience as well when I was trying to communicate the differences between the Russian-speaking team and the rest of TVP. That kind of a lot of things had to go through Roxanne. Maybe it's different now. It's been
it is. And when Jacques was in business and sharp and everything, then it was quite different, because everyone looked at Jacques as the one that knows best about everything. But But it's not like that now. There's no Jacques, so the decision making is more distributed. So there's no single person that calls shots and stuff like that, which I think makes the project more resilient and more in that sense better, because it can accept criticism in that way. And I didn't address. I said that you asked two things. I talked about how central Roxanne is decision making, but I didn't address the thing of criticism. So there are no built-in mechanisms of criticism, but everyone in TVP acknowledges that, and this is why this is something that I'm at least working on. I was asked to investigate decentralized or different models of governance, of how organization can be can manage itself. And what I'm doing now is I'm covering a lot of decentralized ways of managing an organization and transparent ways of managing an organization. Because when the organization became non-profit, it allowed some insights from outside and criticism by the fact that you have to publish reports, whatever you're doing, all the finance, whatever the organization is spending and stuff like that. But it's very, very not real time. Like you can see the report for 2018. Maybe you would see sometimes the report for 2019, but you don't have real transparency for what happens in the organization right now. And so that's what I'm working. One of the things I'm working now is bringing in a system that would enable more transparency and more decentralized fashion of making decisions and moving forward. And you mentioned blockchain, which this is also one of the things that I'm exploring. And I'm not sure that I agree with you that blockchain in general is bad, because I don't think that blockchain in general has any trade element unless you make it.
No, it's used like that mostly today, because it's used for all kinds of most cryptocurrencies probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was my point.
In that sense, I think you don't really know all the other applications that are being how the blockchain is being used right now, because cryptocurrency is only one application. It's like saying that mobile apps are used for mobile payment. That's it. Yeah. Well, but it's very much not like that from my review of this industry so far. And there are tons of applications where you can use blockchain only for the aspects of transparency, decentralization, and regardless of any monetary or trade transaction. Okay, for example, like one of the things that I'm exploring now is using a blockchain just to make decisions. Okay, so as an organization would be able to make decisions on a blockchain, and that means that it's A, transparent, and B, it's safer in that sense that it's not hosted on any centralized place where any government agency would be able to intervene and make either block it or make malicious changes, whatever. So it's both more secure and more transparent. So there's nothing here that relates to trade or whatever. So I don't think it contradicts the ideas of trade free in that context.
No. But my example specifically in the book was that this blockchain was implemented in cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin, that became such a huge fucking deal as a way of transparency and like making things right. And I showcase in the book that it doesn't matter. For one, people can mess with the blockchain, even for the Bitcoin, and there were a bunch of hacks like that. Second, it doesn't change anything when it comes to Bitcoin being transparent. That was my point. I agree with you that blockchain can be used for so many things. I even say in the book, it will be good to use this for all kinds of keeping track of heart records and so forth. However, I want to say something that is very important here. I've heard about this story of organizing TVP since 2011. Since I've been there, TVP is in a constant state of organization. And I felt like this is a big mistake of them. Like they think that they lack organization. Well, in fact, I said to TVP very vocally back then, you don't like organization. You like just people doing stuff and let them do stuff. Or at least start with that, because all of this organization. For what? What is TVP producing out of this organization for the past 10 or so years, in terms of at least new materials? Or, they just look into that? Don't be so trapped in like organizational stages. trust me, I've heard like Sven comes in mind, and then Andrew comes in mind, and then so many people around TVP who had so many ideas. The Concern project that was just to demonstrate in the future how decisions will be made. All kinds of, we implemented some for the websites. I also helped design or whatever test stuff there for decision making. So many things like that, but maybe I'm not saying it's like that, but maybe you are focusing on the wrong thing. It's not organization that TVP needs. It's just to let people create stuff there. Just create stuff there. Let people do stuff, rather than just try to organize so many times. As far as I know, Sasha went there to create a communication channel between the Russian-speaking team, which is the biggest by far, as far as Sasha showed me, the biggest TVP by supporters. Even has lots of more views than TVP main channel has, or whatever. To bring bridge the difference between them. And she felt whatever. It might be from her perspective, but she completely failed to also do that.
It was very difficult, and I learned that it was extremely difficult to communicate with and try to collaborate, because from what I understood from my experience 2 years ago, I understood collaboration to mean cooperation, basically, to go by our rules, do what we say. And there was this also constant state of organizing, whereas the Russian-speaking team, they're a bit detached from the main organization, and they didn't constantly try to organize themselves. They just translated material, put it out there, translate material, put it out there, try to promote the material, these kind of things. And what I saw within the TVP team was this constant attempt to organize the people. And I don't know, it was...
So since March, I took on that mission of bringing the Russian team and TVP together and try to work together. And this is what's happening now. Like, the Russian team gets the material that they need for their work. They also improved a lot of the original videos and made them 4K using like AI algorithms and image processing and stuff like that. And I think now the relationship between both of those organizations, by what they say, is good. So the fact that it didn't work so far, that doesn't mean it cannot work in the future. And like, you had experience with certain people that were with certain background and certain baggage, but people are changing in both of these organizations, and or new people are added, and so this has the potential of creating this mutual benefit, I think.
Of course.
Like happened with the Russian team.
And I think the main point was, though, that they don't necessarily need to be organized this way or that way. They need to do stuff. So if they have a project that, okay, we can do this, we can make the videos in 4K, we can improve the videos like that, do it.
But they didn't just make videos better. They also made videos better that were required for the global project. And the Russian team didn't just get materials that they can download on YouTube. They asked for certain materials and they got them.
But I've been translating the asking. They've been asking for material for a long time, and Roxanne was like, "Oh no, you can't use this material because people need to pay for this material." And I was a part of this also for a long time. So if they got permission to use the material, then that's great. It took many years, but I don't know which kind of material.
I came from the point where I want both organizations to succeed, and so I try to represent both of those things. And so I also could speak in Russian to the Russian team and to the global team in English, and which you could also do, but I mean that the fact that it didn't succeed at some point in time, that doesn't mean that it cannot succeed in the future.
It's also success. It's a matter of like duration. You cannot call something a success. We can just say we'll collaborate and share a few things, and then shit hits the fan again. So we have to pay attention to such things. It's not like success, victory, right?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
I was looking at them. Yeah, sure, Sasha.
No, I was just going to say that I think, the main thing with that, because when I was, involved also with the Russian speaking team, we also had this idea of like, okay, let's make some kind of like collaboration platform. And we were thinking about, okay, let's get the Israeli team and the French team and, all these other teams, the Brazilian, whatever. Let's figure out a way, maybe through a structure, even TROM we were talking about, let's figure out a way to get them to collaborate, and I was thinking like, okay, the first thing we need is like maybe a platform where we can all communicate. But pretty soon after that, I kind of realized that like, okay, but what are we going to do? Like, because in order to collaborate, you need a project, like something to do together, and so this is where we were talking about these things. Okay, translation, yeah, it's something we can do, but TVP and Tron have different ideas of how to deal with translations. That can be a barrier. Maybe something can happen where we can still help each other, like Tio says, translations are open for Trom, so anybody from TVP can come and translate whatever they want, no problem. If someone needs help from volunteers, they can go to tromsite.com/chat, and say, hey guys, can somebody help me? And, maybe there could be somebody, I don't know. So these kind of things.
So for example, with translations, I could have just said the Russian team, okay, you'd have to adhere to these protocols, but I challenged internally in TVP and said, okay, this translation system is so difficult to use and so ineffective, and I challenged that, and until this is resolved, then there would be exceptions of materials would be shared without those protocols, and when the system is improved, then would be able to ask the Russian team to work with this kind of system, which would be easier to use, okay, or easy enough, not just easier. And I think that when when there would be a good system, okay, it would be used by both organizations, because I think both organizations want a good translation, and they will also want the translations to be done. Okay, and a good system would facilitate both of those things and not just only one. It should be also both easy to use and something that would be of high quality.
Yeah, but if translations, are this one kind of project is challenging, how challenging it is for TVP to discuss criticism or for people to reach TVP with criticism, because that's what we're starting from. I still don't know the answer there. Is criticism really reaching TVP? What kind of criticism, and from who? Do they really take criticism seriously in any form, private or public?
Yeah, in private, I think 100% is like I constantly come up with criticism towards things. Okay, starting from design of airplanes, to how the organization should make decisions. Okay, so but the way that I come with it, I don't come with it. I'm not trying to prove anyone wrong in that sense. I'm trying to arrive at better, at this organization becoming better and not becoming anything. Okay. So and one of the things is that the organization does want to create more transparency, which obviously would bring tons of criticism, okay, critique, and I think that's welcome. It already became
to what?
Well, what I said about the non-profit, okay. So
finances.
Finances is one thing, but also decisions that are made on the organizational level are open. You can go into the website and you can find protocols of board meetings, stuff like that, which did not exist before because there was no such thing, because it was Jacques leading the entire thing mostly. And this is something that I think it was an important step, but it's not enough. I think that decisions on a more micro level and not just the very, very macro should be transparent as well, and should be shared. Okay, for example, there's now currently, due to practical limitations, okay, there's a board. Okay, there's no gradation of decision power or whatever. For example, if a decision that's being made is in the field of behavioral science, so probably people that are from this field should weigh in on that and have more say in that. But now currently there is a board that should make all the decisions. So that makes it very difficult, to make decisions in multiple domains. So this is what I'm currently working on as a governance models, to find ways to make decisions in more distributed way to arrive eventually better decisions.
What are these decisions about, though? Because I've heard so many times people around TVP talking about decision making. What is like the practical way? What are these decisions about? Like about what? To make videos, to make books, or to like about TVP's designs, blueprints? What are really about?
Yeah, well, for example, this TROM-Cast. Okay, why are we talking about collaboration? It was because someone or some few decided that this is the topic of conversation. We should dedicate all of those people's time for 2-3 hours, to talk about that. Okay, there was a decision that being made. The fact that it wasn't really like no one said, okay, let's make the decision, that doesn't mean the decision wasn't made. But this is very micro, it go up and then you say, okay, which kind of projects we should dedicate our attention to. And if we don't dedicate our attention to, then if, for example, Theo or Sasha or whatever would say, yeah, well, this is not very important right now. Okay, this is also a decision that's being made. So all these kind of decisions that are made in many cases not consciously, okay, could be made consciously. So people would understand that a decision is being made now. We're dedicating some resources, some hours, our attention. Okay, if we talk about attention economy, so we're dedicating our attention to this thing right now, and so this kind of decision, I think, should be transparent and should be decided by all the sort of stakeholders, people that have some stake in that, that affects them.
So you're saying that you are discussing about deciding if you should focus the attention to like the attention economy, or you should do like these are some, because if you talk about TROM, for example, you call that a decision. Of course, everything is a decision. The fact that I use the headphones, it's a decision. I don't need a board, of members to tell me. But this is something that we do. It's something I feel like I cannot reach something with TVP. Like tell me exactly. Like I want to know some exact example. If that sounds like TROM, I can say, yeah, we have some decisions about TROM-Cast. We make TROM-Cast. We have 50 plus TROM-Casts done so far. We have these books. We have this and that. What is TVP achieving out of those discussions? Where is something that I can see? Where is the output of all of these decision making and meetings? Where can I see it? Where can I touch it?
Or you would be able to touch it once I publish something, but this is what I'm working on. Yeah, I told you the gist of what I'm doing, and I've been working it for maybe a few weeks or a month or whatever, and so I would be able to present something when I do what I do, But one of the results that I already told about is the fact that the organization became from one man saying everything to a group of people, that arrives at the decision in a more transparent way. So this is one result of the process of realization that this evolution should be done in order to allow more people to come into the project, to allow more people to participate, to have more people feel confident that this is heading the right way because they understand where is it heading because it's transparent. So these are changes that were de facto outputs of some kind of process, but this is only first steps.
I would like to see more, I see that many times at TVP too, more stuff being done by TVP, more stuff being created, rather than so much focus on let's organize, reorganize, let's chat, let's make this website again, whatever. So many ideas there that, even I had to refuse to participate when I was at TVP in these meetings, not this kind of, because I don't know if they are this kind of, but in meetings about what we should do. So I said, let's just do something. Just do something. And I was looking to the TVP Facebook page, and if you scroll, I scroll for 1 month. There is not one single post that is from anywhere except the Venus project. And I know this very well. Like they don't even share anything unless someone talks specifically about them. and just basically that's what they do. So to me, that sounds. You see, Alex, when you try to collaborate with TROM and say this organization should collaborate, if I look at TVP, especially with my experience with TVP, and I see that they don't even share, whatever others are doing, even about them, or something that's neutral, that is in their benefit, not even share, then I think that's from the get-go makes me think that TVP there's no way anyone can collaborate TVP. Case in point, we sent some videos, Seb, a year ago or so. Seb was making some videos about TVP. And at the end, he was like, oh, look, TVP, go to thevenusproject.com, Zeitgeist, and TROM site. He sent them to like the TVP Facebook page. And the answer was so rude. And so like they said, we don't publish unless, and I even posted the screenshot of that on my website, we don't publish unless you are with TVP and you do it our own way, the administrator, whoever that was. You may say it's not representative of TVP, but you see how that cuts collaboration, and you see how people tried to collaborate with TVP in the past, and because of such responses of nothing being done, people like me are extremely skeptical. I'm so skeptical that TVP will ever be like, oh yeah, let's look into TROM, like seriously, and see maybe they have this numbnuts have something interesting there. Maybe let's post something. I so doubt, Alex. I wish this was true. I so doubt, because so many people came from TVP to TROM. From TVP to TROM, it was like a fucking invasion at one point. It was like they come from. I was POC for this. I was POC for that. I was like this and this. And I came from here because we get into this big fight with TVP. We couldn't collaborate anything. I couldn't do anything. So you see, you have to take into account my experience with TVP and other people's experience with TVP, and try to convince us in a way that TVP is different now. Because if TVP is not different now, I just completely doubt that any collaboration work between TVP and doesn't matter, it's TROM, any organization out there. So,
yeah.
I can also, I mean, from my experience with the Russian-speaking team as well, I mean, they had, this big festival. It was they were involved in the VK Fest. There were like 20 volunteers that came from all over Russia, and other countries to come and volunteer in this festival and promote TVP. We even organized to live stream Roxanne, so she was a part of it, and it was a nice festival, just about spreading, information about TVP. And they couldn't even share that really on the main social media page. They were trying. There was a long, complicated issue. Of course, they were trying to convince the Russian-speaking team to go by a set of rules that they created, and one was to change the name of the group, which is very complicated, and it would have ended up with very, very negative consequences if they changed the name from the Venus Project to TVP Support, because in Russia, nobody understands what TVP Support means. And anyway, so they were trying to bargain, like, if you don't go by our rules, we won't post any information about your festival on our social media page. And that's their own team, and I mean, the festival had nothing to do with these rules. The festival was just like, oh, it was a great festival. Roxanne was a part of it. We had pictures, we had like little video of what went on in the festival. And if you can't share that on your website or on the main social media official page, I also really doubt that they would be willing to collaborate. I mean, we can try, but
I'm very skeptical.
Just from our experience, because we've had long experiences with TVP and very intense. Like, Theo and I don't have jobs and shit usually most of the time, so we put all of our effort into TVP at the time.
I worked basically full time. I was paid by donations. I worked full time for like 4 or so years, producing TV magazine or helping with the website, managing the social networks. I was one of the I posted the most posts there. If you look at posted by me, I was in contact with Roxanne all the time. She was very nice, and we collaborated a bunch of things. But then I don't think TVP is going to accept anything but TVP from my experience. So talking about collaboration with TVP, you have to understand it's such a difficult thing to swallow for me. I doubt. I will open my mouth. It may sound a bit pornographic, but don't. But I open my mouth. if it fits and I like it, then oh fuck, that's just bad. No, I'm just here. Like if you,
Oh yeah.
Give us a visual.
no. I'm just here trying to eat whatever you are like cooking, but let's see if I will. You
can go
first
to the
cook for
street,
me.
open your mouth and say, everyone, if it fits, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, let's see. Maybe I have
You'll
more
get-
chances than with TVP.
You'll get tons of trade, tons of people paying for it.
but Alex, honestly, don't you find it bizarre that TVP doesn't even share anything but TVP's materials? Isn't there anything that's relevant to TVP at all?
Yeah, probably there is. Well, what Sasha said, I wasn't part of that entire process, so I cannot say one way or another. But in general, the way it works now is that in order for the official channel to post something or share something or whatever, it needs to get approval of the people that work on social media. Okay, people. So just a sec. So there's, for example, there was a post which was quite controversial about COVID-19 and the virus, and it went through a lot of criticism, and even though it passed, it got a lot of criticism for people in the community and stuff like that. So that process, in order to make sure that materials that are published are correct, true, and are backed by facts. And this is partially due to the fact that it wasn't like it before. Previously, a lot of materials were published, and there wasn't adequate, sources in the description of the video, and not everything was backed by, research and stuff like that. So what TVP is trying to be is more of, a scientific organization that posts things that are backed by facts,
But only their website.
What?
It's only the website that's shared. If you look at this, is I think 99% just TVP's website. Nothing else is scientific that they can share. For example,
well, materials that are published are mostly materials that are created by TVP, but they're not
only
about but they're not only about the website or about the cities of TVP. Okay, for example, the COVID-19, and there was if you look at the last few videos, they are talking about a lot of things, in the world, and the pandemic. None of them are specifically related to, resource-based economy or anything like that.
But just to put TVP, it's like the word is bad, but look how, if you could approach it like TVP envisions, it will be better. So it's still about TVP in the end.
Yeah.
But
all groups like TROM's only shares things that align somehow. You don't share like cats playing on a piano, right?
Of course, but that's what I'm saying. There is nothing that TVP feels like it's everything else is cats for TVP. It's weird.
But it's also like, I mean, that the fact that they share all the time, where these used to probably still share all the time of like, I support the Venus Project, and a picture of someone's face, or some event that happened. But this was like a big event that happened, and a description of the event, and pictures of like, the tent that had all TVP stuff, and the book and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Roxanne was a part of it. We live streamed her, and they couldn't share that because they were trying to get the team to go by some rules.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying
it's like I don't know how long ago was that, but for example, as part of that collaboration last few months, the entire Russian community sent a lot of questions for Roxanne and for the Venus Project Global, and there was a series of 3 videos where Roxanne and Nate answered the questions of the Russian community, and it was posted on Russian channel, and it's material created by TVP. So so there are also, at least now, things like that I know do indicate of a lot of openness and willingness to collaborate between the two. So
Alex, I'm still scrolling to TVP's Facebook, and I don't see any links except TVP, except the Venus Project. I feel like that's a good indication that they don't even share anything really. Do you understand that? Or
yeah, but I think that shows the contrary. Like TVP would benefit a lot of traffic into the website if it would post a lot of things that are from other sources, okay, but it doesn't. It's sort of shooting yourself in the leg, okay, because it can bring you more traffic. But what TVP tries to do, and it's arguable if it's the right thing to do or not, but what TVP tries to do is to get to publish more credible things. And in order for that to happen, it does all the research and on those topics and creates those videos and publishes those. But those videos reference to external sources. So I think this hurts the project in terms of traffic or exposure, but it has the potential of having higher quality materials. So I think it's
But Alex, I feel like it's so obvious that TVP only shares about it. I mean, anyone can look at that, and if you think that if I was here, an organization that only shares their stuff, when TVP could benefit so much from sharing so many, from documentaries to books from other people, rarely, if ever, they share that. And I was there sharing stuff so many times, imagining stuff, So I think let's just not use our baby brain. Like I'm like they just as if like it's obvious. I'm sorry, but it's so obvious to me. It's so obvious that they only share that, or some interviews that Roxanne may do. They don't share anything else. So unless they try at least when I will see TVP sharing relevant information, because not everything can be cut to TVP. Let's be honest, there is so much stuff there. When I will see that from TVP, that's a door open from TVP to others. Like TZM does that a lot more, but even TZM, we contact them sometimes about some materials to come to TROM-Cast and so forth. Even they don't quite share or reply. If we don't do that, Alex, then it's very hard to go anywhere with any kind of strategy or board members and so forth. It's just think for a second about TVP magazine. I sent all of the magazines to Roxanne. All of the content is checked by Roxanne and Jack. Did they ever share those magazines since the time I left? And not even my articles. Other people articles who wrote for TVP magazine. Honestly, look at that. Do they ever share that? Those people's work is gone because TVP never published those things. Like, why? Was it relevant back in 2015 and it's not relevant in 2020? That content.
Maybe.
I feel it's well, maybe, but all of it, like, okay.
Yeah, there is a TVP support group where other materials are shared, because that's the purpose there, to expose to what's going on in the world. But the purpose of the main page is to publish things that are made by the TVP project. So I'm not sure, like, what do you think would the benefit for TVP limiting its materials only the materials that it creates? As I said, I don't think there's some hidden agenda. It hurts the exposure and the traffic. Obviously, it would benefit from more, like you said, if materials would be shared. I don't think anyone at TVP says, "Oh, we don't want to share our whatever." Like, on the contrary, the page would benefit, the project would benefit from more traffic. So what's like you're saying, baby brain? What's the rationale of the baby brain to do that? There's absolutely no sense.
I've heard that many times around TVP. Now, I was at TVP, they will not share. Like, look at this, Alex. They said not to even write about TZM in TVP magazine. Like, I would want me to go there, like, not even mention Peter Joseph's name because they got into a fight with TZM when I was at TVP magazine. I was told by Roxanne to quote Jack in TVP magazine several times, and I got quite bothered, and I made all of the emails transparent. These are the things that I faced there. Saying that it's not like that. Maybe you're right now. I doubt based on my past. That's all I can say.
Absolutely. I agree with what you said, Sasha. Sorry for I agree with everything you said, and I think that's bad practice, not publishing or not whatever, doing anything with materials that are specifically from the Zeitgeist or TROM. Okay, I totally agree with that. It's wrong. Go ahead, Sasha.
No, I was just going to say also, I remember, maybe it's different now, but when I joined as a POC, I had to sign a contract kind of that said that I wouldn't participate in any other RB organization, RB type organization, including Zeitgeist, including whatever, I don't remember.
That sounds extreme to me.
Yeah. So it doesn't limit you from participating. Like, I contribute to many organizations, that doesn't bind me legally in any way, whatever.
Why would they put that there?
The concern. Well, let's maybe finish a discussion or let me answer both of those things. Okay, so TVP doesn't post on its page materials, like you said, from any organization or creator. So it's not specific to TZM or TROM. That's why I think there are sort of hidden agendas not to publish stuff maybe from TZM. Okay, but that's unrelated to the fact that the TVP page, main page, publishes only materials that it creates. Okay, these are two different things, and I think the TZM thing and TROM thing is very wrong, and that's why I'm trying to change now through these discussions of collaboration. Regarding the document, that's where I tell you, I know the purpose of that is the concern that due to events in the past where like there was like with Dubai and United Emirates and stuff like that, there was a possibility of building a city of Venus city there, and they tried to take when they understood that they don't have the resources or whatever, they try to steal all of the drawings and build it anyhow somewhere else. And the concern was that people would think, oh, here TVP, it's it looks like TVP, but it's a city that has trade and money and corruption and crime there, so TVP doesn't work. So that was, I'm not saying that whether it's the right thing to think or do, but that was the rationale of why not all materials should be released, in order not to create a situation where people associate something else to TVP just because it looks exactly the same, but everything else in that city wouldn't be implemented, like all the social design and all the micro things, only it would look artificially the same. That was the concern. I'm not saying that whether it's right or wrong. I don't think that this actually prevents anyone from doing something that imitates TVP and whatever. But that was the rationale of doing having some document that people that get all those materials wouldn't just go and hand them or sell them to those contractors in those countries that want to build something that looks like that. And
I was curious, is this something that was explained to people when they signed those contracts?
On the rationale? No.
The rationale. No, well, you don't see a problem with that?
Of course I see. Yeah. I see tons of problems with a lot of things that TVP is doing. That's why what I try to do is try to change that and change some of those things.
How do you think I can, after all of that we said, and we can say a lot more, but how do you think I can trust TVP? Because that's why we said such things. How do you think I can trust TVP? What can gain my trust? If you want here to bridge the difference, what do you think can gain my trust after you heard all of this? And there are a lot more of bad experience for me and Sasha with TVP and others.
I think there would have to be, a success of something small that both projects benefit from, in order to, have incentive to dedicate more attention to it, and do more stuff. So, because you're saying what a lot of the arguments of you and Sasha raised is that, well, this didn't work in the past. That means that it probably wouldn't work in the future. So, that argument would cease to exist if there would be examples of how it did work in the past. So say, okay, let's continue doing it in the future.
Of course, we have to rely on our experiences. I mean, in the past was the same. I was like, okay, in the past in the world, let's try this year. The past in the world, let's try this year. And I've seen that for 4 years, and I've heard for many people for lots of other years. So for about 8 years, 9 years or so, I'm hearing this in great detail that things didn't work for many who tried. Of course, based on that, I would say I have the reasons to think that it's not going to work in the future either. That's why, but I'm open. Do you see? Let's see. I mean, I think the ball is in your court or TVP's court. Yeah. I don't think we do anything to stop this, because we invited you here. You had this idea. Let's say let's discuss it in public. You see, you are here. I would rather have also do other things today. I'm working on TROM 2. I wanted to really work on that, but I said maybe it's important. No, let's hear. Alex is a very nice guy. A very friendly guy, and so let's just see what we can do. I hope Alex. I hope it doesn't go too wrong to say this, but I hope you don't waste your time with this or with TVP. I hope you don't feel as not hurt, but fuck, after a few years to solve some TVP problems. I hope I'm wrong. I just hope I'm wrong, but I don't know. I've talked to people from TVP who argued about TVP, and then they come back and say, "Oh, no, I'm not with TVP anymore because I tried to collaborate in there and it didn't work." So I hope this doesn't happen to you. You're such a nice guy. I really hope. I don't know you much, but from our interaction, you seem like you seem to listen and to be friendly. So at least that I appreciate.
Okay.
I really appreciate. Yeah.
And if
That's
you
a
have
good start.
some, if you have any like specific, project or something in mind, like, okay, we're creating this thing and we can, we want people from TROM and TZM and TVP, of course, anytime come to the chat and be like, here it is, come here,
Okay.
collaborate here, or I don't know what you would have in mind as like a next step. Say we were all, happy and willing to work together, you kind of, you need that material, so
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
in mind, like specific.
Yeah. So it's in my court, the ball or whatever the phrase is. So I'll have to come up with some project that's small and not something that's too grandiose to to fail for other reasons, and yet important enough to both organizations so that there will be incentive to work on it. And if that succeeds, then that would be precedence for more stuff to come. And I would try to do the same with TZM, because I'll try to understand, each organization to understand what are the needs, and then I can find, intersection points where there's a benefit of working on something together. So I'll try to understand that with TZM as well. And
Did you have
TV
any success contacting them?
I haven't tried yet, TZM. Yeah, I'm in contact with one community. I'm in contact with TROM and TVP. Yeah, like TZM actually, like in Israel, TZM was very popular, and then sort of every transition to TVP. So there's a lot of links to that organization. But I think they're sort of like, well, what one of the problems that TVP, like people in TVP raised about TZM, that it became all-encompassing and it allowed everything to come in. So if that is true, then it would be easy to come to the table of TZM, but that would also can be one of the things that need to be, to understand by both sides, that TZM trying to be more all-encompassing and TVP tries to be more concrete and more specific and doesn't allow a lot of going to the sideways.
I would say your work will be a lot more with TVP rather than TROM and TZM, which are more lenient, more open to these kinds of things. Even if you look at TZM, they still talk about Jack's work and the Venus project. You can look at their website or whatever social networks. So I think you have you have a lot of work to do there, man. And let's see, ball is in your court. Our chat is open, and I've added Alex to our TROM cloud, and I will send you some specific stuff if you can help with TROM Jaro, for example. Or let's see how it evolves. This thing is not a one-day thing, or like let's pledge and that's it. This thing needs to resist for years, not only resist but grow. So
collaboration is a constant flow. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not just an agreement.
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
So let's see. How long do you stay there?
Currently, my visa is till the end of the year, so I have some time to influence that in person.
And you'll be in TVP the whole time?
Well, I plan to go for a month to Israel and then come back, but now with the virus and everything, that might.
Make sure you don't lose your visa now if you leave. Careful.
Yeah, exactly. Might not be able to come back.
Cody, how would you summarize the entire TROM-Cast?
Summarize. We should be collaborating with the people flowing in the same direction. Like the organizations that are gonna collab together are gonna, like, as soon as there's kind of like an awareness, there's gonna be like that friction kind of just goes away, kind of thing. I think, like, and we can try to like bridge and build this structure to kind of like incentivize that to happen. Maybe not incentivize, but to like push it more in that direction. That if we see that TVP is moving in that direction, kind of thing, and that they just have this rigid structure that's kind of preventing it to move quickly, if that makes sense, then yeah, that's I guess that's a worthwhile pursuit as well. But that there's going to be organizations that are just already kind of in line, I guess, with other ideas and whatever, that they just kind of flow and they'll do their thing together. They'll be sharing stuff like automatically that you wouldn't have like the conversations or like how should we collaborate and things like it would like spontaneous
or help directly, probably.
right. Yeah.
If it's possible,
Yes.
possible. And my dear Cuban, no, not Cuba. Are you from Cuba, Noel?
Yep,
You say you're
Cuba.
from Cuba. Respect
Fidel
from
Castro.
Cuba. If you have anything that you want to say, you wrote some stuff in the chat. If you want to say something before we leave, how would you like see? What did you understand from this entire discussion? Huh?
That it seems to me that it's like the collaboration thing, like in quotes. The difference seems to be like identity. Like one is trying to keep it pure. I'm not sure what I'm talking about. I'm probably gonna, but I'm just gonna say it. Like TV, PM, and it's like more like heavy. You can't just post or share things. It's kept reviewed to be like more pure, like a certain identity of like Jack's work only. It's just about Jack's work and not really about relevant technology that could be helping, and that like there's people's work that could help. It's more about just Jack's work, and anything about aside from that is not really taken into consideration. That's what I see.
Okay then. Let's see if Alex can change the situation, and
Influencer.
I'll
the
try.
influencer. Be the influencer, Alex.
Anything else you want to say as like the final word, Alex? Or final
No.
idea? Okay.
I don't like to be the final word. Eventually I presented some ideas, and I think these are my opinions and my ideas, and I'll try to do whatever I can. I have I'm the influencer of myself, so I would influence myself to do stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
hopefully that dare to be stronger than just random environment. And so I'll try to do whatever I can, and then we can move on from there.
I think that's a great point, Alex. You be your own influencer, Don't just like try to connect Trom with TVP or whatever. Try to connect you with both of these things and understand them very well. So maybe in the end you will change. Who knows? Let's see.
Maybe
Okay.
I change all the time.
Yep.
That's my final word.
Okay, people. Okay, another 3-hour TROM-Cast, and we can leave it here probably, and
All
we'll
right.
see next time what we are going to talk
Thanks
about.
for the discussion.
News covered.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you for
Okay.
listening.
Okay, bye, people.
Adios.
Adios.